A night in with Mauler and the drinker, getting trashed with the web screen dinkers. A cheap night cause I'm feeling kinda thrifty, got a 10-pack of beers and a bottle of whiskey. Hop off the cork, have a glass of wine, I'll feel safe, I'll be fine. Trouble walking in a straight line, but pour me a Pinot Noir. It's open bar with our hosts, Mauler and the critical drinker.
Woo! All right, here we are, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to the open bar on a Thursday again, as it should be.
The world has returned to a balance that we can accept.
We're back to where things make sense.
I'm
sorry that
alcohol.
I'm sorry that we had to like switch things around last week, but I had to go off to Houston for Anime Matsuri, and it was absolutely fantastic. I got to meet Gary and Chris Gore and Nick Rakita and Melanie Mack and Chrissy Meyer and Camelot all face to face for the first time. So it was very cool.
Brave. He went outside, everybody. I obviously I didn't go because I was like, what the fuck, dude? Can't just go outside like that. It's risky.
I barely went outside, if I'm honest with you.
You give me too much credit.
It was 105 degrees or something there. It was ridiculous. So I basically went from the hotel to the convention center and back again. And then when I wasn't there, I was at the nearest bar. So it was all nice and air conditioned. But yeah, it was pretty cool to be there. It was a very good experience. But now we're back, and I'm back in not so sunny Scotland, and it's time to do another open bar.
Talking about how great everything is.
Oh yeah, we're loving modern entertainment. But hey, let's bring in our first guest. He's a regular here now at this point. It's the Critical Doggo, and as you can tell, he's just as excited about Blue Beetle as the rest of us.
Oh yes,
actually. Shit, I think he might actually be dead. Smokey. Oh, no, there we go. The ear went up. He's alive. There. God damn it, I'm trying to sleep. But yes, okay, let's bring in our actual real guests. And speaking of Anime Matsuri, this gentleman, I got to meet him for the first time there, and we shared many a fine whiskey. It is Camelot. Welcome to the open bar for the first time, my friend.
Oh my gosh, I'm still recovering.
Yeah,
you just kept coming over and being like, oh, here you go, and I'm like, oh shit,
take another one.
And then I got to the point where I don't really remember much. That's pretty wild.
That was pretty much every night for me, to be fair.
No, it was great. And like you said, don't go outside because it was like fire. It was just fire on all my pores. So I just used the land bridges. There's like these tunnels. You never have to go outside. It's great.
That was pretty convenient. Yeah, like, you know, in Chronicles of Riddick, that planet that, like, when the sun comes up, if you walk outside, you just instantly get incinerated. It was kind of like that in Houston. It was a hell of a place. But yeah, the whiskey was good. So what can I say?
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for coming on today. I know I've been on your stream once before, and it's good to have you on here.
Yeah, dude, and we can drink again. It just doesn't stop.
Yeah.
It just doesn't stop.
Yeah,
I can't hand you drinks, but
canceled, so we can just drink as much as we want now. It's crazy.
Yeah. I got this lady flew from Austria to Matsuri to meet me, and she gave me this I don't even know what it is. It's some like alcohol that is like has writing on it. So I'm excited to try it and not die.
Yeah. It might make you go blind. It might just get you drunk. Who knows? I think she gave me one as well. My bag still hasn't like reunited with me.
Oh damn.
Yeah, I went to New York and it went to Chicago, and it's still not back. So who knows? All the whiskey and gin and stuff that people gave me, it's still in my suitcase. So maybe it'll get back to me one day. Who knows? Anyway,
I hope so.
Well, yeah. We should bring in the rest of our guests. The next one,
probably.
Our next guest is practically a co-host at this point. It is the Little Platoon, and I recognize those sunglasses.
My God.
Everyone else is wearing them. I felt left
I feel
out.
underdressed now.
Is there anything that Avatar system can't do for you? It's just awesome.
Arm movements. I'm very limited where those are concerned. But otherwise, yeah. I can wear a Christmas hat, but it's not the right season for that yet. But there's plenty of stuff. I'm going to be rolling it out over the course of the rest of the year.
Excellent. That looks very good. And good to have you on again, my friend. It's good to have you back.
thank you for having me back. I'll be billing you for the liver damage afterwards. But
yeah, the drinker accepts no liability for any damage incurred during the open bar. Unfortunately, yeah, you signed that waiver like verbally when you signed in. And last of all, we have got Mr. Disparu. Welcome back, my friends.
Hello.
As always, good to have you on.
Always good to be back. I do like that you can tell when people are hungover because they start wearing shades indoors to hide the bags under their eyes.
Yeah.
You've got Camelot talking about how it's amazing because whiskey has writing on the bottle, so it shows the kind of thing he normally drinks. It's like, it's just out of some random piece of glass that I get from the guy down the road. He made
just
it
like
in a bucket.
Just like dunk it in the bathtub and like scoop out a portion for yourself.
Homemade stuff.
That's how it is. That's it. I got to a point where a drinker could have just handed me a glass. It could have been piss. I wouldn't even cared.
It might have been. It might have been at one point. All right. Well, anyway, it's good to have the bar assembled. We've got the critical doggo and we've got our guests in. So, I guess the first thing I was going to talk about with you guys tonight is the wonderful world of Snow White. Which, my God, that is a story that just will not die. It's like a fire that's become self-sustaining, partly, I guess, because there's not a huge amount of news coming out of Hollywood, and all these like old interviews that Rachel Zegler has done have now begun to resurface. And well, for your delectation this evening, gentlemen, I've produced a little video like with some of the highlights of them. Would you like to see it? Yes. Can you stomach it?
No,
right,
but
cool.
We'll see it. Yeah.
We'll do our best.
We'll try.
All right. Yeah. All right.
Scared of the original cartoon. I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again.
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be.
What are you talking about? What character is she talking about?
I genuinely don't understand what's happening at this point. Like, she dreams of becoming a leader. Like, there's people in life who lust after power and leadership, and they're not good people.
Yeah. It's like when it reminds me of the drinking game, where you just take a shot every time another movie comes out, and they explain that she's not saved by a prince or a man. She becomes a leader. It's way new and modern. And I'm like, how many times are you going to do that? It doesn't really feel new and modern anymore. They've been doing it for every movie since 2012, it seems like.
Yeah, it really feels like an old-fashioned talking point. Like, this is the kind of thing that would hit home, like, in 2016.
Yeah.
When all this stuff was just coming to the forefront. Now it's so tired and played out. It's like they're working from an old playbook from a different era.
It's a very localized playbook, though. It's very American. Like, over here, we've had queens for centuries. It's not new. So you're like, oh, well, we'll have our first ever queen. It's like, yeah, that's what happens. You know what one of the primary duties of theirs is? They have kids so they can pass on the royal bloodline. And you're like, well, it doesn't really matter as long as she's got power. Yeah, then the royal family dies, then there's no one to pass down the lineage to, and then you have a war. That's not a good thing.
And the thing is, like, she didn't earn any of this power. It's literally hereditary. Like, that's the point of a monarchy. And it's like, well, okay, you're not aspiring to a position of power. You're not working hard to improve yourself to get it. It's literally just being given to you because you are the princess. Like, it's fine because it's the underpinning of like so many fairy tales, but like, you shouldn't be proud of it with this character. That's not what she's about.
Aren't we overthrowing the evil, powerful lady in this film?
Well, that doesn't make sense either, because she said now they're changing the meaning of fairest of them all to mean the most just, which means that the only person who's more just than the evil queen is Snow White. Every single other person in the realm is more evil than the evil queen.
Yeah.
It's either that or the evil queen's ultimate ambition is to become the most just person of them all, in which case, what's her motive for action? Because like her motive then is to be a good person. Okay, so don't be evil then, so you're fine.
Actually, yeah, that's I've never even thought about that. It's actually more relevant to modern times than anything, because that's what all celebrities do currently, is try to one up each other on who's more morally just. So it's basically just Hollywood 2023, the movie.
Another self-insert.
Oh my God. It's wild.
Yeah, it's like this is what happens when you try to bend classic fairy tales around like modern cultural norms and modern like hang-ups. You know, you can't have, say, an older woman, a mother character being jealous of a younger woman's looks, because it's superficial and it's petty, and that's not the sort of thing you can promote in female characters. And so it has to be like, no, she lusts after her goodness. Like, what the fuck are you even trying to tell us here? Like, what is this moral message that you're going for? You know, like you say, if you want to be good, okay, fine, just be a nice person, and you're going to be the fairest of them all in that case.
It seems like they see these stories as just sort of a collection of actions and events that happen, and so because they don't look at the morals that underpin it all, they will change one event and they don't realize the knock-on consequences that you have to change. And so once you change this thing, it either doesn't make sense or you have to change everything else about the story in order to try and make it make sense. And they're just not good enough to... You're essentially creating an entirely new property, which is not what no one wants. So they end up in an inevitable catch-22. Because that's what's happened in Wheel of Time. They've changed some of the basic things that just ruin the entire story. And I think they've done that with this when they're like... When you're changing the meaning of the actual, like, the word fair, you have to change everything else because you don't have any other point to make.
It also misses the point that, you know, the queen in the original lusting after beauty is a bad person for doing that. So there's no point changing it because you think people shouldn't be just judging girls by their appearance. That was part of the moral message of the original story. The thing that makes Snow White distinct from the queen is that she also lusts for love and, you know, good things as opposed to simply beauty and covetousness and material possession. Is what makes her a hero as opposed to a villain. Whereas the one they seem to be building up here, maybe it's deliberate. Maybe all of these interviews are like very subtly preparing the audience for a bold reimagining in which Snow White is the villain and the queen is the hero. And actually, like Rachel Zegler is in character all the way through this. That would be believable. I don't imagine that is what they're doing, but it wouldn't be out of place if that is what they've been working on.
I mean, like, yeah, when it comes to like how to endear yourself to an audience, wow. Like,
yeah.
Well,
I don't know what to say.
She has this same attitude in Grease interviews. So this is just her. Yeah,
I mean, it just, you know, I've tried to cut her some slack, like particularly in the video I made just recently. It's like, okay, she's only 22, and like sometimes we say silly things, and you can get a bit swept up in the drama and the attention and everything. But yeah, man, it seems to be a real pattern of behavior. Like exactly like you said, like she was talking exactly like this when she was doing Grease. This is just her personality, I think.
Yeah,
she comes across as a very arrogant, snooty, self-righteous person.
I've met this girl several times, Drinker, and what happened was, all throughout her life, her peers and people that want to impress her or whatever tell her that she's extremely funny and witty. Mm-hmm. So when she goes into these interviews, she's leaning into that. But what she doesn't realize is all these yes men that have been saying that for years were actually just saying that for ulterior motives, and she actually sucks. So now we get to see it, you know, without a filter, and she is just awful. And it's the faces she makes, the pure detestment in her voice, even if she doesn't mean it. You know.
Yeah, we're gonna get a little bit more of that. I'll play the rest of the video. Just shout out if you want me to pause it.
It was fearless, fair, brave, and true.
Reality is that the cartoon was made 85 years ago, and therefore it's extremely dated when it comes to the ideas of women being in roles of power.
Did you notice that, like, when she said it was made 85 years ago, she actually rolled her eyes? I don't know if you guys spotted that.
Because anything that's that old has to be shit. Like, there's no way it could be good, right?
Of course, yeah.
Like, who's in power? And it's like, you mean a woman in this story? Like, why? She looked at it as like, you know, the evil was in power. What?
It's these people. They're. It's an entire subset of people that absolutely hate everything that came before them. It's all looked at as in a negative light. Even though, to be fair, you know, kind of unrelated, men and women have got along since the beginning of time for us. Yet just recently, everything that came before us is so evil and awful and looked at in a negative light for some strange reason. Which
I think they have I think they have a misconception as well of like how women in these different historical eras were treated. Like they weren't chained to a sink and like beaten every day of their lives. Like there was plenty of women who had power. It just manifested in different ways. You know, they might not have been at the head of armies, like charging across battlefields and stuff and beating up guys in that simplistic, childish way that like they want to see nowadays in movies. But they were more than capable of influencing people around them. It was just done in a more subtle way.
Yeah,
that's the difference. But they don't understand that because they can't conceptualize anything beyond their own lives.
Exactly. And it's what they fail to realize is men and women work together in a good capacity to get to the point that we're at. We had to, right? But it's always seen as in a negative light for some strange reason. And it's probably because they've never left this tiny little bubble, hearing how great they are and how evil everybody else is.
Well, yeah, but their modern narrative requires that, right? So if you're, let's say you are Rachel Zegler's age and her sex, and you have her career, and you're living up in growing up in incredibly safe, stultifying, boring times with no real possibility for achieving social change because everything you believe is kind of already existing.
Yep.
How do you then mark yourself out? How do you stake for yourself a position which they can call brave, bold, and radical? Well, it's by pretending effectively that the past was much more oppressive than it is. Ergo, there is more work that must be done. Ergo, I can be a leader and not just another generic-looking actress with not very much talent to my name.
Yep. I think it's the same mentality as the perpetual war from George Orwell's 1984, where it's like you always have to see another enemy. Like it doesn't matter how many times you win, the enemy is always there and has to be combated again and again. Because if you don't have that, then you've nothing to motivate yourself and everyone else around you. And so that's the same thing.
It can never be that you're making a movie just for fun, to entertain people, and to tell a good old-fashioned story that's been successful with so many different audiences. No, it had to be like there's something important we're achieving here. You have to understand that.
Well, you know what's interesting is like because I pointed this out in my video that I did just yesterday. It's like with most of their other remakes, they were fairly respectful to the original. You know, they sang its praises and they said like we're doing this live action remake. We're very excited about it to bring this classic story back for a modern audience. But they were relatively coy about the whole like, oh, we have to change this and that and the other thing because it's not suitable for audiences today. Occasionally it would creep in, but generally they played it fairly cool. Whereas with Rachel, this is a straight up attempt to like assassinate the original. And I don't know if this is her going off script or I don't know if this is the bullet points that she was given by the studio, but it's just the tone of it is so different from their attitude towards every other remake they've done.
Yeah, it's like Leonardo DiCaprio going on a media tour in 1998 or 1999 and being like, yeah, I hate Titanic. I hate everybody that built the Titanic. They were all really stupid. The technology really hurt the environment, and we're going to change it to make it fit modern times. And also, I hate everybody that was on that ship, and I'm glad.
The Titanic only crashed because there wasn't a woman in charge. It would have survived if there had been.
It's probably been suggested somewhere.
It was a ship of white supremacy.
You know, the iceberg was male, so I'm just saying.
Yeah,
I think with Stephen Amell when he spoke out against like the union strikes and they crushed him within days, and now he's on the picket line just days later. You saw the impact and effect that people can have when you speak out against it. So I can't. She said this for so long and so often. I don't think that it could be anything other than endorsed by the studio itself. Especially when she used to say, "Oh, I'm a huge Disney fan. I used to love it," and now it's like I only watched it once. I hate it. I was scared of it, and it needs to change. I think. Because there is a problem if you're going out there and saying that you love the first movie, but you're also releasing something that changes everything about it. That doesn't really work either. So you have to come out and start speaking out all these problems that you have to fix with it to even make sense in the first place.
Yeah.
So the first statement was about as authentic as Leslie Headland going like, Star Wars literally saved my life. Like, did it fuck, you arsehole?
But there was a reaction when it's a deal of Disney movies. And she's like, yes. And it seemed like a reaction that it did seem genuine in that kind of thing, because it was a bit of a weird squeak more than a thought about response. And so I think she does like Disney movies in themselves, which, if anything, I think this inherent contradiction that she's got between herself, something that she enjoyed when she was a kid, combined with something she's been taught as she's got older, it's probably difficult. Like, she may not have even thought about it at this point.
Oh yeah, never underestimate these people's capacity for like cognitive dissonance and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's perfectly possible. And we hear it all the time. People who say, "Yeah, it's such an honor to be playing this role. It's great that people can finally see them represented in this role." So, well, but you didn't need to aspire to play the role, did you? So why do they need to see you representing them on their behalf in a role that you didn't require representation to inhabit, etc.? I don't think actors are particularly thoughtful creatures. This one certainly isn't.
No, it's
Let's hear a little bit more about what she has to say, because this is her thoughts on being on the picket line and being on strike.
There are 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess. I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
But it's
Yeah. So
Where's the money coming from? If streaming
the best comparison I saw for this kind of thing was like a carpenter who builds a kitchen table saying, well, I should be paid every time someone eats a meal on that table. It's
Yeah.
like, that's not how it works.
all I can see is the contrast. When I was in an Uber leaving Houston, and we went through this underpass that was a few blocks down from the actual convention center, and there was probably 200 homeless people like under this underpass, and we were passing down it. And then right past it was just this fence, this like chain link fence that had political ads all over it of like, elect me, elect me, elect me, elect me. And it's just this giant contrast. You have people saying, I was in a dress for a couple hours a day. I should be paid for the rest of my life for being in that dress. And then you have people in the streets that are like, man, I would love a cheeseburger right now. It's wild.
Well, I mean, even taking it back to her own industry, right? They're like 99% of actors are living paycheck to paycheck. Like they are the bulk of the workforce, where they're not making crazy money. They're not headlining big budget movies. They are just getting by, Those are the people who are suffering during this strike, and those are the people who are trying to fight for better terms. And those are the people I can kind of get behind, because it's like you do get screwed over in some ways. And if you are worried about, like, say, your likeness just being taken once and then duplicated using AI and you never get paid for it, yeah, that's really shit. And you should definitely fight against that sort of thing. What they don't need, though, is a girl like this who's headlining a Disney movie. It's probably like a couple $100 million. She's probably getting paid several million for her efforts on this. She is making more from this one movie than most actors will make in their entire careers. And she's bitching about like having to get paid for every time the movie gets shown. No, fuck off.
Yeah, it's a tricky one as well. It's certainly for the rest of the industry, because of course it's not just the actors, it's also the writers, and in public perception the strikes do tend to be bound up together, since they are striking largely in solidarity with each other. And just imagining yourself as a legitimately underpaid like staff writer for a studio, and you're thinking, on the one hand, wouldn't it be great if we got a bit more publicity? Wouldn't it be great if we had someone with star power come and take up our cause? And then down the road, flouncing down the road, comes Rachel Zegler, and you think, oh shit, God, no, please, anybody else. Yeah. I'd rather not have publicity now, thank you.
That's all you hear. Like when the strike first started rolling, all of a sudden you'd see articles from all these extremely well-known celebrities in like tattered fake clothes, acting like they're living paycheck to paycheck, which completely destroyed the public perception like that people had for it before, because you have all these people that are like, oh, now I can only drink 6 martinis a day instead of 8. Like I can't get by. I'm selling my house, my $25 million house, and having to downsize into a $21 million house. And it just doesn't speak to normal people at all.
No, I think Disparu, in your latest video, you pointed that guy who's got like a $2 million mansion, essentially, who's like, I missed one paycheck, and so I have to sell it. It's like, that's not you being hard up. That's just you having shit financial planning.
Living beyond.
Because if you're making enough money to buy $2 million houses, you clearly are making a lot of money. You're just spending it all.
Yep. And if you did have like liquidity problems and you had to sell your house and now you got $1.4 million, people still aren't going to feel sorry for you. Just buy a cheaper house. Like, that's what most people have to do. But I think when it comes to residual, there are industries where this is the norm. If you take like comedians and stuff, they have the gate when they go to actually perform at a place, or they can get paid up front. And it's about risk. Do you want to put all the risk up front and then you take a cut of the profits, or do you have no risk and get paid up front, and then whatever the upside is, if you happen to be popular, is done via that just goes to the place which is hosting you. When actors, they want both. They want a big paycheck up front, so they have none of the risk, and then if it flops, I don't really care because I'm going to get residuals if there is any anyway.
Yep.
And you can't do that. They're not confronting the studios like they're business partners or like it needs to be fair on both sides. It is, if we don't act for you, your entire industry dies, so we got you over a barrel. I don't think you can negotiate on those terms. If anything, you make the other people want to get rid of you, and with AI on the like the precipice of coming forwards, you're just going to push them into those.
Golden Spider Duck made a really good point here, saying 98% of actors, and the actors for whom this strike actually matters, are not celebrities. It's a huge miscalculation to put celebrities front and center. Yep. It really is, because I'd much rather hear from actors who are literally living paycheck to paycheck, and like, okay, tell us like what you actually earn from like doing one episode of a TV show or something. And how much you get screwed over with this kind of thing. I would have so much more sympathy and understanding for people like that than people like this.
Yeah. The rates are all public. That's the thing. And so they can't really do that. You have the people who are in the front of the camera saying lines, and then you've got the background actors. But then you get into... If
I know,
doing
but
a TV show,
you've got
like
agents who negotiate you with different rates and stuff. Like, it's not...
but the strike will be about the minimums.
Possibly. But I think even just understanding what your average actor, your day player actor who make up the bulk of the industry earns would help a lot of people to understand what these guys are striking for.
And make the rate sheet if you want.
But then Mark Ruffalo walks out there and makes it about him. And then it ruins everything, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, I mean, Rachel, again, like when you saw that clip there, she was talking about like herself and how she should be paid more for what she does. It's like, no, if you were going to help, if you really were interested in helping, you would say, like, I'm just here in solidarity with these people. Like, I'm doing fine, but like a lot of these guys are really struggling. Like, let's try and get a better deal for them.
Yeah,
that's it. You don't have to make it about you.
100%. She should have never mentioned herself. And she should immediately mention everybody that's actually disenfranchised by this. But her entire 22 years of life had only been about herself. So I don't think she would even know how to do that.
There's also nothing that I'm aware of that prohibits the particularly wealthy actors who want to show their support and solidarity with the strike from like engaging in some kind of private salary sacrifice arrangement, for example. Mark Ruffalo doesn't need to turn up and say, hey, this is all about me and how unjust I find this. He could say, well, I'm worth several tens of millions of dollars and I've just finished X project. So I will be willing to, top up the wages of striking people for as long as it takes because I'm never going to be out of work, but these people might be out of a job and out of a house. So there are other ways to be a moral agent without being front and center of the protest, but actors are not very good at doing that.
What works better? Is it the clout from Twitter or is it giving your money away?
Well, I don't think it matters because clout from Twitter isn't getting anything because nobody is supporting them. And the more you appear out of like whack with the normal person on the street, the less they're going to support you. They're trying to play like a perception game with the studios, but they're calling on the CEO, oh, you're making all this money more than me. You should sacrifice some of your money. But then you've got the guy on the street who's that far away from the actor as the actor is away from the CEO. It's like, well, why don't you do it with the people below? You've got the guy from Breaking Bad going, we are union until the end. It's like, well, okay, are you going to, you did Breaking Bad. You must have a lot of money. Are you going to give any of that? No. We're a union right until it affects me, and then I'm going to vanish like Batman.
We mean them, not me. Them.
Yeah.
I aim that at Bob Iger. Thank you very much.
Let's see what else she's got to say.
It's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows?
Look at her face. Just look at her face.
I know. Look at that. It's like that's like close up for a little funny, eyebrow raise there.
But I wish it was 1950 right
now. But yeah, like she's talking about like begrudgingly acknowledging that like there might be a love story to it, but like who wants that? Who wants to get with another person? Who wants to be chained to them when you can be powerful, when you can lust after power and leadership? That's all that matters now. What horrible, like heartless cynical view of life and humanity if that's what you're preaching in your movie.
Always felt like overcompensation to me to start being like, it's not even just the woman getting saved by the man. Now it's just falling in love. That's regressive. Like, wait, what? What's happening? And it's like, the story has to be about more than just love.
Love's so lame, Mahler. Now it's about becoming the CEO of Apple. Okay,
I wonder, like
that's almost like what it is. It's like, oh, why have petty attachments to other human beings when you can just be earning more money in a cubicle office somewhere for a corporation, and then
That's
you can spend it on things to try and fill that aching, horrifying void in your life, and try and silence those voices reminding you that eventually you're going to die alone and unloved, surrounded by cats that will slowly eat your corpse.
And that happens so fast. That's like 31. Drinker. That's fast. Zegler's 9 years away from being like, oh damn, I should have not said that.
Well, we've all got a shelf life, and ultimately, like we all get more progressively horrifying as we get older to look at. And so,
yay!
Most of us didn't start out that great to begin with. You know what I mean? Like so, it's only going to get worse as you get older. That's why you should try and like settle down relatively early when you can still get something halfway decent. But it's not a good thing to. Because generally movies used to preach the idea of material goods or wealth or success or power was less important than finding like real meaning in your life. Yeah. And that meaning was through personal connections to other people, i.e. falling in love and starting a family or whatever. And that applies to men and women. Now it's like, it's preaching the exact opposite. Just go out there, be a girl boss and rule things and be in charge of stuff and be strong all the time. You don't need people. You don't need attachments to things.
You can make the argument, and I think in some instances it's a fair argument, that in certain older, say, 80s style macho action films, women were not much better than mere sex objects. And that was a bad thing. I think that's a fair argument to make. I don't think the conclusion
was it a bad thing, though, Platoon?
Well, that's a question for but I don't think that the answer to that is not then to say, well, you know what, we want the same kind of like lack of attachment, just the other way around. We still don't want love. We still don't want fully realized and recognized relationships. We still want individuality, and progress is basically material wealth, and that's it. But this time it's the woman doing the acquiring as opposed to the man. I think the same things that made some of those older 80s action films very shallow and not particularly engaging unless all you're in it for is tits is the same thing that makes a lot of these modern female remakes not particularly engaging or meaningful or deep either. They're both missing a very, very important element, which is the love part that she seems to regret so much.
Yeah.
I think the difference being, though, that those 80s action films that you referenced, they never marketed themselves as something to be taken seriously. They were always tongue-in-cheek. They're not like an actual, coda on how to live your life. Whereas like something like this is almost like pushing itself as like, well, this is what young people should aspire to. This is the kind of message that we want to put across to the younger generation. That's very different from like a dumb action movie.
Yeah, you didn't see Sylvester Stallone, right? You didn't see Sylvester Stallone coming out and being like, "Hey, this movie about rising above and shooting Nazis and stuff." Like he wasn't about that.
It was about like a man in his sort of peak of performance going out defending people, sacrificing himself, and then getting the girl. Like, that's a very base kind of male attitude and sort of fantasy, like power fantasy. So, but when it comes to like what women are getting now, it is essentially go through, like, what is a princess except a job at the end of the day? If you're not going to marry a king, then you're just working. And so it's go through, be a princess, get money, don't have kids, don't have a relationship. This is very different. Like, I think that the basic action fantasy, like, is a masculine value. I wouldn't say this was a feminine one, though. Like, just to be atomized and seek money.
I mean, speaking as someone with a penis, I prefer not to try and tell other people what like feminine values are. But I mean, I think I see where you're coming from. I don't really think that it's the male versus female fantasy argument is necessarily the best one, though, because I fully believe that Rachel Zegler's fantasy is what she's describing there. I think there is a large subsection of largely upper middle class affluent women and celebrity women in particular who do fantasize about power and about leadership and who don't really think that they have any time for love, relationships, children, and all that kind of thing. It's their fantasy just as much as the old 80s action thing was a male fantasy. We can argue about whether it's a productive fantasy, but I don't think just saying it's not fantasy or that it's not quite the same.
Is it a fantasy or is it their life? For instance, they've got to go through Hollywood to climb the slippery pole, which means they can't have kids, because if they do, then they'll be at a disadvantage for the men who don't have to have kids. And therefore they go through and they just put it into their stories what they live. Is
it a justification almost? It's a validation. You know, because this is the life that I live now. It's all about my career. It's all about my the pursuit of power and success and stuff. So I can't really make time to start a family, to have meaningful relationships with other people. It's all just superficial. And, you know, it's all about just the work. And, you know, is it just a way of saying, well, this is how I live, and so I want other people to live the same way because misery loves company.
Yeah, it's the self-insert. And one thing that's probably pretty important to note is she's probably very, you know, somebody that's, you know, like at her size or what she does for a living, how well known she is. Her DMs on every social media is filled to the brim with people saying that they're in love with her. She has no short of like that affirmation that people adore her. That's why, I don't need to focus on that. I have everybody adores me. You know, everybody adores me around me. Everybody adores me professionally. Everybody adores me on social media. Therefore, I don't actually require that, so I can focus on this, which is what happens to actually a lot of people around that spectrum, I feel like.
There's that's obviously been the interviews that have been doing the round recently. A lot of them are older, like, which is really interesting. It's the fact that many of these were recorded months or even last year, but they've suddenly like risen to prominence again. And the eyes of the internet are very much on Snow White and Rachel Zegler. But now that it has happened, it's just caused this insane backlash. And well, there's an article here from the Mail saying branding experts warn that Rachel Zegler backlash could ruin Disney's big budget Snow White remake and predict executives will be having crisis talks in order to win back fans ahead of the 2024 release. So they do have until next year to try and turn around the perception of this movie. I just don't know if they can do it. Rachel, 22, caused uproar online after admitting that she hated the original movie. The West Side Story actress insisted her Snow White would not be dreaming of her true love in the upcoming film. The PR and marketing executives warned her comments could have negative impact on the movie's success when it released in March next year. Yeah, doesn't sound good. I mean, I just... The sort of negative perception was already hanging around a movie like, say, The Little Mermaid. That received quite a bit of backlash. But Halle Bailey was smart enough to not really play into it. She generally just came across as quite positive about the film in interviews and stuff that she did. She didn't comment much on the backlash and so on. And she didn't make particularly controversial statements or interviews or anything. Whereas Rachel Zegler has taken the exact opposite path. And I think this is going to be like Little Mermaid times 10 in terms of like the antagonism towards this film. Like, people just genuinely seem to hate it already.
Yeah, the public perception is completely ruined, and the only way to fix it is push it back and pull a Sonic, replace Rachel Zegler, completely rewrite everything, and then apologize profusely. And then maybe
they're going to do that.
No, they're not going to do that, but that's what they need to do.
It's just funny because everything's working against this film. So it's like, you know, like people will say like killing the baby in the crib sort of thing. It's like, no, this is just, you just killed a corpse. It's like, fine, I guess.
I think the only thing they could do is just quietly release it onto Disney Plus.
Yep.
Don't give it a theatrical release because it's going to get absolutely slaughtered. Its box office is going to be negligible. Just get it out as quietly as you can so that you've released it, and hope that not too many people notice it.
I love how very quickly as well Disney's its trademark landmark streaming service is now synonymous with the quiet release as well. That's quite impressive.
Well, you saw it, Peter Pan.
Yeah, it's not like they haven't done it before though. Most people don't know that Lady and the Tramp got a live action remake. They got quietly released on Disney Plus.
I didn't know that had a remake, so yeah, I'll count myself among them. Yep. This one, though, didn't Peter Dinklage complain about this a couple of years ago? And like talk about pulling up the ladder you yourself climbed, but he's talking about how it has
a very small ladder,
a Latina Snow White, a very small ladder. He needs a ladder. It's cast a Latino Snow White, which is that's fine and great, but it still has reductive stereotypes in the way that it treats people with smallness. and by so doing has ensured
People
that there are
with
probably
small
like
bits.
7 like unemployed dwarves on the streets of San Francisco who might have had a role in this film but won't have it thanks to people like Peter Dinklage who are very much trying to screw them over.
The interesting thing about that as well was how fast Disney responded. Because there was, I doubt they were planning on doing it, but he complained, and I think it was like the next day or something. They came out and went, "Oh yeah, they're not the magical creatures now." And when you're willing to change something as fundamental about that as your story, anything else is on the table. And so that was definitely the first domino in the chain.
Well, it's just been endless, hasn't it? It's like
Yeah.
they've got a Snow White who isn't white. They've got dwarves who aren't dwarves. Like you've got the search for true love's kiss, which is no longer about true love or kissing. What the fuck do you have left with
They
this
should probably
movie?
just change the name of it. Just it doesn't need to be something. Just No White. Just
Yeah,
No
it's
White.
like generic princess and magical things go on adventure.
Generic
magic.
Hispanic princess.
We did it. We solved everything. I don't know if you guys saw it. There was like a clip of, I think, Piers Morgan's show where he had 2 guests on. One was a dwarf and one was someone who was against all of this stuff still. And there's like a direct back and forth. Like, you shouldn't be calling them dwarves. And the guy was like, what do you mean? I'm fine with it. I'm okay with it. And like, it would cut back to the guy who was just like, well, but like as soon as that happened, he's just like, but you're not supposed to be. You're breaking the rules.
Is it just me as well? Like, or does little people sound way more patronizing than dwarfs?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but it was the
Because
Daily
there's, like,
Mail article quoted like an institution that I thought was the worst one, but I'm trying to find it.
That's what I would want. A dwarf, like, because I love Lord of the Rings. I love all that lore. I would just grow a giant ass beard if I was a dwarf, and I would just run and I'd just be a dwarf. I'd be like, this
Just
is
have
great.
an axe on your back the whole time.
But if you came up to me and was like, oh, look at that little person, I'd be like, you son of a bitch. I'm a dwarf, son. Come on.
Yeah, it's not as if they even have sort of a bad connotation. You think of like the dwarves in Lord of the Rings and stuff. They were cool. They were like big, hardy warriors. It's not like an insult by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, but when you say little person, it's like, oh, you're just a little bitty person. Like, no, that's awful. That's a shit thing to say to someone.
The Daily Mail said Dinklage concerns were shared by some charities, including the Restricted Growth Association.
Oh my god.
The Vertically Challenged Alliance.
The Society for the Uplifting of Small People. Yeah.
But you are right that the response that she gives, because it was definitely the journalists that were setting her up, 100%. They were all going, so you've said before that you're giving it a modern edge. Can you explain in detail what you mean by that? And she's like, oh yeah, sure. She has no idea that she's just walked into a trap and that they are deliberately trying to get her in trouble. And I do think that Brie Larson at the Cannes Film Festival is still the best response when they're going, so what do you think about Johnny Depp then? She's like, why are you asking me? I have no idea what I'm even supposed to do with this. Like, well, it's all this. It's like, well, if I see the movie, I guess I'll tell you whether I like the movie or not. And it was just completely ignore it and put it back on them to explain exactly their problems that they want you to say. Because they won't. Because they
I'll give her due. Like her response there was pretty fucking good. And I like the fact that she was just like, yeah, why the fuck why are you picking on me? Like, what do you expect from me on this one?
The interviewer, if he could have been honest, would have been like poking her, like, but drama.
Yeah, it's like, come on. It's like, you're a feminist. Come on, say something feministy.
Piss everyone off. Come on.
Yeah,
just poking with a stick.
I don't know. Maybe in her case, like, she's matured quite a bit and realized, like, yeah, people will try and goad you into saying things that you might regret later. So, just don't rise to it. So, in which case, fair enough. Can't fault her for that.
Yeah, she gained she gained an ounce of respect back of the 32 pounds that she lost.
And yeah, Rachel Zegler is a lot younger. Like, I think she's probably 10 years younger than Brie Larson, and she doesn't have that experience of the industry. So I imagine she'd be quite easy to lead into saying what you want her to say. But then you've got like Gal Gadot towering over her, echoing everything that she says, which makes me think, well, they're right then. Like, what they're saying about this movie is factually correct based on the script, because Gal Gadot is agreeing with everything that she's saying. And Gal Gadot is a pretty experienced, celebrity at this point. She's been in the game for well over 10 years.
Isn't it interesting, though, that she didn't get the same reaction because she didn't say it with the same kind of attitude that it was presented by Rachel Zegler? So, yeah, she's going, you weren't saved by the prince, but it wasn't. It wasn't repeated across multiple interviews and said to such extremes.
Gao is like that fucking mate of yours that like pushes you towards some asshole in a nightclub who's like trying to start a fight. It's just like, go on, lad, go on, and then just quietly fucking fades into the shadows, like when the fighting starts. Like
to the bathroom.
I don't know if maybe we credited her a little too much. I mean, like, I thought she was just airheaded enough that if you said in front of her, like, we really need to just destroy the entire country with fire, she'd be like, yeah.
Are you implying that Gal Gadot is not a towering intellect, Mauler?
I
what you're
think
saying to us?
that she's a great example of the difference between the discipline of modeling versus acting. Summarized perfectly.
Fair enough. Well, anyway, that is the current controversy, I guess, around Snow White.
She did her apology video, didn't she? I don't know if that was today.
No,
or
that was from an
yesterday.
No, that's not real.
Was that not?
Well, it is real, but it was talking about something else like a year or two ago. It's not Snow White. What happened was some nefarious people in the journalism industry leaked it and re-released it, trying to imply that it was like her response to the Snow White controversy, but apparently it wasn't.
There is that sort of does beg the other question as well, isn't it? Which is that, so as annoying as she is, and as objectionable and as unlovely and arrogant and egotistical and selfish, and as much as she doesn't understand the source material, and I can go on, she is evidently also being played by a media industry that's hungry for stories and scandal. So how much of the reaction to her is fair? Is the majority of it fair? Is it a little bit unfair? Is she being used by people with nefarious?
I mean, ultimately, she said all of the things that she's been quoted on. Like, all of these things that, like, presented to you in that video there were her talking about Snow White. So, it's not like you can quote her out of context there. She's specifically talking about this specific character in this movie. But yeah, like, I can imagine with things like this apology video, they're trying to, like, stoke some kind of controversy. But the weird thing is, she hasn't apologized for any of it, which I don't know if that's worse, really.
I don't think she can with the strike.
Well, she can't promote the movie, but she can address personal issues about her own PR. I think that would be okay.
She'd have to talk about the movie, though. I don't know how you'd apologize without.
It could be as simple as, like, look, I've said a lot of things, or there's a lot of interviews with me that have come to light recently, and, like, I just want you to know that I don't really stand behind the things I said. They were said, like, in haste or whatever. It's all about her, essentially, rather than the film. You can do that as long as you're careful in your wording. But she hasn't, which is interesting.
Yeah, my ex-wife didn't either, ever. So, I mean, I don't expect it, man. No.
Never admit you did something wrong.
No.
But yeah, that is Snow White in a nutshell, essentially. This movie is going to get a tough time of it when it eventually comes out.
It's so unfortunate as well, just because how it would be different if it was something that was created brand new and bespoke. But the fact that she is so clearly in every conceivable way the opposite of the character she is playing just really helps bring into very sharp relief that decline in values and mindset. It's not helpful that she's ruining a pretty upstanding model of romance and female empowerment of the old sort. Not helping her at all.
No. Just before we go on to the next thing I was going to talk about, I was going to say that we have, some of us, released plushies and such like over the past couple of years. Mauler has now got a new one out, but it's not just a plushie. It's not a normal thing that's all squidgy and stuff. This is a vinyl figurine.
Yeah,
and it's now available to order. It's like these things on the shelf behind me, which they're like proper statuettes.
Plasticky. You can hit someone with it.
Yeah, you can force feed it to your dog and it'll choke to death. Like, whatever you want to do, it's fine.
So many options.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about it, Mauler.
Oh, they're gorgeous little figurines that Makeshift offered to sort of do as an option, because we did plushies and they're great and everything, cuddly. I've even
plushies are so 2022. God.
Well, a lot of people are like, oh, not a third run of plushies. Now I can't like sleep with it, and it's like, I mean, I like, how serious is that? I don't know. Like, a lot of people really do like them for that. Okay, like pillows and what have you. But yeah, these are more familiar.
Pillows?
Like, yeah, people.
How big are they?
I don't do that, but some people might. If they're a little lonely.
The
Okay.
tiny people.
No, nothing. Well, yeah,
Little people.
How dare you? But yeah. Wait, are you able to get it up on screen just so people can see what it looks like?
Can you share an image? With
I
us?
Can. Because
in there, I'll bring it up for everyone. I was hoping I should have had like a little promo video of it spinning around or something.
You can spin them on the site. It's crazy. There's 360 view. We're in the future now,
Whoa!
Gentlemen. None of that. Just 2D one slide thing. Now you can see their asses of these figurines. That's what matters.
Easy there.
The important features.
Absolute innovator, you.
And yeah, they come with pretty. Like, I was quite impressed just with the packaging alone. I was like, shit, man, this looks like a real, full-on, like, professional thing, like a merchandise from a movie or something. Which, you know what? That's what we've become now. We've become.
You sent me the fringy one.
I sent all three of them. This
okay.
It's the EFAP collection. You see, it's wonderful. It's gorgeous.
Where is the Mueller one? Oh, yeah, there it is. Right. So I can just share a screen so people can see it.
I thought it turned out really well, considering, because you never know with these sorts of things, with those bits of plastic merchandise. Because the cuddly plushies, man, how safe is that? But this, look at him.
Look at him. Can we spin him?
Yeah, you should be able to. Yeah, there you go. 360 view. What? Almost there. Drink. You gotta keep sliding.
Oh, there we go. Look at that. Look at that. He's spinning around and everything.
He's holding.
What's he got in his hand?
That is supposed to be film reel, but in the figurine world, it's like a ruler or a thick piece of something. But I'm expecting to film. Okay, that's how it works.
And now you can see how many tentacles Mahler's got to get you with his logic.
Oh, that's slimy in the best way, I'm sure.
Does look very cool. But anyway, yeah, the link to that is in the description for this. So if you're interested in ordering yourself a Mahler vinyl plushie, then by all means, go ahead. They're there and they're only going to be available for a limited time. So get in while you can.
Yeah.
Don't miss out or you'll regret it for the rest of your life and you'll die a sad, lonely person.
Aww.
Like Rachel Zegler.
Oh,
anyway, so, that went dark there. Yeah, so the other thing I was going to talk about was Disney. They're in a bit of trouble at the moment financially because they just did their quarterly earnings report, and they are unfortunately getting sued by one of their major film financiers. It says here, according to Deadline, Disney are being sued by film finance partner TSG, which claims that the media giant used every trick in the Hollywood accounting book to hoard slate profits. So essentially, they've been lying about how much money they've been making on movies so that they can keep the profits for themselves and they don't have to pay it back to their financial investors. It says here, Disney has been hit with a lawsuit in the Los Angeles Superior Court by film financier TSG, which claims that the media giant used nearly every trick in the Hollywood accounting book to hoard hundreds of millions of dollars in profit. It echoes the Scarlett Johansson lawsuit over the release of Black Widow, when it came out on Disney Plus at the same time as theaters back in 2021. They contend that Disney has made a number of movies aimed at feathering its own streaming nest. Warner Brothers Discovery faced similar legal blowback from longtime finance partner Village Roadshow over the day and date streaming of release of The Matrix Resurrections and other films. Some of that obviously was a result of the pandemic where movie theaters just weren't open. But in this case, Disney are being hit with a massive lawsuit, and it compounds the financial problems that they already have, where when they bought over Fox, they bought a stake of Hulu with them, and they are now legally obliged to buy the remaining stake of Hulu, which is worth, I think, about $40 billion. It's like insane amounts of money. They have to pay that by next year. By the beginning of next year. Otherwise, they can be, they've defaulted on their financial obligations. And they don't have the money to pay for it, which is a bit of a problem. And they haven't actually found a way of raising the capital to pay for this. So there's only so many employees that you can fire, and there's only so many projects you can kill in order to save money before you run out. You've hit rock bottom, and it kind of feels like they're at that point. I don't know where the hell this goes for them, actually.
I'm so shocked that it's alleged that Disney was lying. It reminds me of when movies were coming out several years ago, and the entire theaters for miles would be sold out, but there would be no one showing up. It's a really weird time. It's like Disney was buying out the theaters or something crazy like that. So yeah, I wouldn't put it past them, and I don't see a path forward. There'll probably be one though.
It seems so backwards to me though. These are the guys that finance your stuff. And so you would think that a company would want them to be profitable because then they're more likely to finance your next project. And by making them get basically nothing, you just make them not want to lend you money when you need to. Like when you need to suddenly buy Hulu. If these people had been making massive profits off you, they probably would have been more likely to give you the money now when you needed.
I think it's more like they probably make long-term commitments. So it's like, we've agreed to finance you for the next 5 years or whatever. And so almost within that time period, you can just give them the bare minimum in terms of returns and keep the rest for yourself. I think that's what they were aiming for, whereas they've been unmasked essentially as lying.
Could you see them selling a giant franchise?
I think they're hoping they're going to get bought over by Apple. I genuinely think they do. I think they're hoping that Apple will buy the entirety of Disney and they can settle all of their debts, like, overnight, basically. Apple's such a massive company that they could easily pay off all that stuff, because, in the grand scheme of things, compared to these giant tech firms, Disney's still a relatively small player. Like the amount of money that they can raise, the amount of operating capital that they've got available is dwarfed by companies like Microsoft or Amazon or Apple. And so, yeah, maybe they've just they've reached the limits of what they can do as a company. They've spent an absolute ton of money acquiring like Fox, acquiring Marvel, acquiring Lucasfilm. Marvel's paid off, certainly. Lucasfilm hasn't really. Fox, they've done barely anything with. It was just to bulk out the Disney Plus offerings. So it's just they've overreached themselves, I think, and they've reached the limits of what they can do as a company.
I mean, don't you think Apple would be, though, if they bought them, though? They're a hardware and a software company. And yeah, they do have Apple originals and stuff, but taking on Disney compared to their Apple's originals is a whole different board game.
I know, but imagine the cultural impact that you can have if you've got access to all of Disney's back catalog, all of their IPs that are under them. Like, you can not only dominate the technology market, you can dominate the entertainment market as well, potentially.
You can, as long as the thing you're buying actually still has any kind of significant financial potential, which at the moment Disney's struggling to prove. So if Disney struggles to prove to its current financial backers that anything new that it makes is going to be worth their investment, I think Apple will look twice. It would also be, I think, against what I understand Apple's historic practices to be. If you look at the way Apple TV is run versus almost all of the streaming services, they're not known for buying up huge numbers of smaller studios in the way that Disney has done, and effectively just pooling massive sort of back catalogs of stuff. Disney's also got a number of plans, as far as I'm aware, at least in the works for Disney Plus, to try and make that profitable before anything like that would happen. So part of the Hulu deal is that Disney Plus is also trying to move people onto subscription models, which they pay more for off the bat, but also that run ads, because at the moment, one of the few aspects of Disney Plus subscriptions that actually do generate money is where they're allowed to run third-party ads as well. So really what they're trying to do, at least what I've been reading about, is they are trying to effectively force people over to advertise-based models by upping subscription prices for non-advertising-based models. They will bundle Hulu in together with that in a bid to effectively recreate cable TV, because we're entering the, we're coming out even of the bold era of, hey, we can transform media, and actually Disney is moving much more toward a model that's existed for a very long time, and it's existed for a long time for a reason. It actually makes some financial sense.
I mean, I think with Hulu, is there really that much on it that you can market? Is it really that valuable, or is it just a thing that you were lumbered with because it was a clause in a contract when you bought Fox? I don't really imagine it generating huge amounts of money for them. I definitely see what the point you're making about like moving over to an advertising based model where you can actually generate a lot of revenue from these streaming services. It kind of undermines the whole point of what streaming services were supposed to be, but that's that's the maturation of the market, I suppose.
It is, but the maturation of the market is very much showing the stable and sensible practices that old players used to have. So, for example, let's say Disney Plus is very successful in doing what it currently plans to do. It moves everyone over to ad-based contracts, and it also charges you more per month for subscriptions. Well, at the moment, there's nothing that can stop you, for example, saying, wait, well, this new show has just come on. I will buy Disney Plus for a month, binge it, and then leave. And ultimately, there's not a huge amount of financial potential there. However, there are other kinds of streaming service that are out there, which effectively mean like a phone contract. You buy into it for a period of time, much like you do with cable TV. So you say, I will buy 6 months of Disney Plus, as opposed to I can just buy and leave whenever I want to. Then you have effectively recreated cable entirely. And I think Disney will try that before it looks at any major sale of a company. That's like the absolute last straw, given how many other things they can do. They've bought so many studios they can try and sell on. There are so many high-paying people still there they can try and move on. There are still many franchises they can license out to other distributors. There's a lot of stuff that they still have yet to try. And that's before you even consider Apple, for example, being the only company big enough to buy Disney, whether it would be willing to shell out that amount of money, which I really would be surprised if they did.
I mean, I would definitely want to offload Lucasfilm because there's nothing there there's nothing there that you can use at this point.
What about Mando?
Yay. Ahsoka's going to save Star Wars, everyone.
Yay.
Buckle up because it's going to rock your world.
But I think Apple will have the same problem, because we saw in the Hollywood Reporter when they were talking about Amazon really wants prestige because they're seen as just like they're a retail thing, so they don't get they have to pay more for things because people would rather go with an established name in the entertainment industry. And there's a different corporate culture when you're someone like Amazon compared to the entertainment industry, so it all works against them. And I think Apple would have a similar issue. It's like both them and Amazon dabble in this kind of thing, but they're not known for it. And so you'd be like, well, you could keep Disney separate, which would maintain a separate culture, but I think Apple would want to merge the two and get them all into the Apple brand, into Apple TV. I don't think they'd want Disney as its own entity, and so they would lose that prestige. They would end up with a lot of Amazon's problems, which Amazon don't seem to be able to get out of, because the way you get out of that is by winning awards and stuff, and they can't. So that's why they're so desperate for it.
I think Disney's almost unique in terms of entertainment brands in that it's the legacy of all legacy brands. This is something that dates all the way back to like the 1930s. In terms of like an impact on not just American culture but worldwide cinematic culture. And it's something that has like a lot of inherent value. Just the name Disney used to be synonymous with fairy tales, with like magic, with family entertainment, all that sort of thing. If I bought them over, I wouldn't want to just subsume them into my generic tech company. I would want to keep them as a distinct brand, but just like me take all the profits that comes out of it.
But that's anti-Apple though. They're all about getting people into their ecosystem.
Well, I mean, potentially. I mean, I guess this is something that's a bit different from anything else that they could have bought over. The brand loyalty that goes with Disney, the cultural impact, I think is not something that you could easily just assimilate into your bigger company, because the sort of families that go to Disney World or whatever, or go to see Disney movies, they don't necessarily support Apple as a brand. Like there's not a huge amount of crossover there. But all you need to do is essentially just buy them over, find a way to cut the fat, and get them back to producing the kind of quality entertainment that they used to produce up until about 10 years ago. And it's going to be a nice little earner for you. They don't have to represent the Apple brand necessarily. You just have to oversee them to the point where they actually are profitable.
Yeah, there's got to be some executive standing there being like, yeah, well, maybe we should just almost appear as if nothing happened or nothing changed, right? Just to make Disney exist as its own entity, because that's all people need. As long as they see the Disney logo, they're fine.
Well, look, when Disney bought over Fox, so okay, look at Prey that they produced, right? Under that banner. Like, it's not a typical Disney movie. It's much more in line with the kind of films that Fox would have made before they were bought over, which is fine. The brand is allowed to retain its distinctive culture and its style of filmmaking or whatever. It just means that the profits that it generates goes to its parent company, which is, I guess, what you would want in a takeover like that. As a consumer, anyway.
Upside. Like, the upside for Amazon is that if we get you into Prime, then you buy more from Amazon. So that's how they sort of pass on the losses in the TV industry. I think their
model,
similar.
Amazon's model is nigh on perfect in that you're probably going to want Prime anyway, just for the next day delivery, and the enormous profits that generated from that allow you to sustain your film studios and dabble in this stuff. So even if things aren't massive successes, it doesn't matter because the rest of your business makes so much money, it compensates for it.
I think that's what Apple would want, though. Get you into the Apple serve as an entry point to get people more used to Apple, the Apple brand, and then into the rest of their ecosystem.
But Apple's not it doesn't provide the same service that Amazon does. Certainly it provides technology and stuff, but the people who buy Apple products, they've made a conscious choice of I want an Apple iPhone, or I want their laptops or whatever like that. Amazon is just much more generic. It's just I do online shopping, and literally the ultimate sort of online shopping place that you do all this stuff is Amazon. It's the quintessential online store. And so it's much easier to get just a massive general audience in for that than it is to get them to spend $1,000 on your latest iPhone. Those are two slightly different things. Obviously, Apple are massively successful at it. They certainly have a huge customer base. It's just not as accessible to the average person as Amazon is.
I think their plan would be to lead you in slow. Once you buy one Apple product, you're more likely to buy the next because they work so well together. So you could start with Disney, then that leads into Apple TV with an Apple TV box, and then that leads into other things from there. Well, I think there's a path. I don't think buying in harder. Disney. Is it though? Buying Disney and going, we will change all of Disney and fix it and make it making good stuff when it isn't. It sounds a lot more hard than we will come up with a different revenue stream.
Well, I mean, in terms of the accessibility side of things, my mum, who's 76 years old, uses Amazon to buy stuff online, but she's never owned an iPhone in her life. She wouldn't care about any of that stuff. That's the difference in terms of what one product is more accessible to just your average person, whereas one is more targeted to a certain demographic, perhaps a younger, more affluent demographic. Because Apple products are expensive generally. That's partly why people buy them. That's the perceived value of the quality of them. Amazon is just the sort of thing that anyone can use online. I mean, it's ultimately both businesses are hugely successful. I just think I think either of them could buy over Disney potentially and turn it into a massive money-making venture. If they were able to cut out a lot of the crap that Disney have indulged in recent years, I think it could definitely be done. There's still enough value associated with that company to make it viable.
Maybe. Because taking sort of what you were saying earlier about the use that Amazon, for example, has for Prime Video, that is very much to bolster an existing marketplace that Apple doesn't have. And it was prepared to make a loss on the purely streaming side of things, quite a big loss in the case of something like Rings of Power, if it can make up for that by channeling many, many more people to use its daily marketplace. With something like Disney, I think you could see how they would do something similar as Amazon would do. I'm struggling to see how Apple would replicate that, not least because I think Apple is already also slightly losing some money on its streaming service, but it puts out far less content. It does almost all of it either in-house or as originals. And a lot of it's also quite shit. So it's prepared to lose money on that but it's not really doing the sort of quantity over quality approach, because unlike Amazon, it doesn't have an easy receptacle for people's new subscriptions. What are you subscribing to Apple TV for besides Apple TV? Not really sure. What are you subscribing to Amazon for besides Amazon Prime Video? Well, Amazon Prime. So a huge amount of money, huge amount of debt, huge amount of bad and toxic content that they'd have to prune down and get rid of. That's an immense amount of money, which is very hard to make back in the short term. I think it would take Apple longer to make that money back than it would take Amazon to do, just because the model they operate by is entirely different.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's kind of the point I'm trying to get at. It's not like, if your idea is that, well, they'll buy it and fix it. It's like, well, they can do that, but also lead into Apple products. It's just, I think if they don't have a second monetary system of getting more people into the Apple ecosystem, there isn't really any reason for them to buy it at all, because you're just buying a problem that you've got to fix.
Yeah, it's also not by any means a surefire way to improve Disney quality. Let's say Apple bought Disney, for example, or even bought a part of Disney. Let's say Apple bought Lucasfilm. Well, go on to Apple TV and you will find a mix of things. Some of them are quite good. I think Tetris was quite good. Some of them are okay. I think Silo was okay. Some of them are absolute garbage of exactly the nature you're used to seeing from Disney Plus. So that would be, I don't know, Foundation, for example, which is so expensive and it looks so lovely and it's so fucking awful. So I don't think it's a surefire way to hope for better content, just that it will be bought up by a bigger, rapacious studio. There's a lot more that has to fall into place in that sense. We might get less of it, but we're not necessarily going to get better of it.
I mean, yeah, when I think about Disney and like the problems that they've got, both financially and creatively, I always ask myself, like, okay, what could you potentially do to fix this? Like, how would you go about trying to correct this problem? I think it would have to involve the wholesale firing of a large portion of the company.
Yeah, clean house, pretty much. Especially if we had full control. Is that the scenario here?
Yeah. So if you were brought in and like you were essentially given carte blanche to do whatever you needed to do to make this company profitable, that was your only goal. It was like, just make this company turn a profit. I don't care how many people you have to fire. What would you do?
I would dress up as the Grim Reaper, buy a real scythe, and walk into head office and just start swinging, I think.
There's a movie idea.
Yeah. It's almost like it needs someone like Elon Musk to buy it over. You know, someone who's super ruthless, who can just come in and say, like, you're doing dick all, you are just some like ideologue, your department is completely superfluous, and just you're fired.
And nothing changed. It kept on. Nobody noticed any difference. There was a bit of a slowdown in the servers for maybe a week or so, and everything was fine. And they, like you say, they fired entire departments.
Yeah.
And I think you'll find that at all these tech companies, because he bought that company when it was all the rage to do My Day at this place, and it was just them doing nothing for 24 hours. And
I went to a meeting at 11 a.m. for 5 minutes.
Yeah, and then they're like eating like 15 different like gourmet lunches. No, like what I would do is I would fire anybody that supported the idea of creating media for modern audiences. Everybody across the board that even mentioned it, be fired.
I genuinely think you could come up with a keyword list and just sit in a few meetings for a few weeks, and anyone that said those words, just get rid of them.
Yep.
It's like, I think it comes down to the fundamental values of people and whether they have to line up with the audience. If you have values opposite the majority of people in your country, stop. Like you can't make entertainment for them. Because I don't even think it's like about writing and stuff. If you can't make the person watching feel something that they agree with, I think they're not going to like the entertainment in the first place. They have to have some kind of emotional experience, and if you're pushing like horrible values on them, like Secret Invasion, we were supposed to believe that the guy who wanted to wipe out all of Earth was a guy who was at least not a bad guy, all because someone broke a promise to him. If that's your morality, the audience will not like your story no matter how well it's told, because they can't even empathize with that character at all. And it just comes across as, why are you whining at me? You're the evil person. And so I think you do have to start hiring people who have an entirely different belief system than what is currently available.
I think sometimes like the videos you see behind the scenes as well. Like what was that one that was done in Lucasfilm where it was like a whiteboard behind the writing team, and it was like Luke Skywalker with a big cross through him, and like dinosaurs, representation, diversity, and stuff. I would see that if I was an executive and say, right, literally every single person in that room is fired immediately.
Yep.
Like if that's the best you can come up with, if that's your mentality for like how you're going to handle this incredible IP, you are out the door. We do not want you.
Yeah. If I hear the words diversity before good storytelling, you're gone.
Yep.
Well, maybe ask them about their history too. What have you written? What have you written that's impressed people? What have you
Or
written that
yeah,
people
like,
love?
or maybe I'll just take a little look at your Twitter feed and see what you've been saying about various things. Like, oh, okay, like 95% of what you post is political nonsense. Like, okay, yeah, I don't want you.
It's
You know,
like,
because clearly that's all you can think about.
Well, the craziest idea would be if you're hiring, for example, for Star Wars, ask them if they like Star Wars. And if they say, I hate Star Wars, maybe don't hire them.
Well, no, like get more specific, because like if you say to them like, "What's your favorite Star Wars movie?" and they say, "I love all of Star Wars," I would say, "No, that's really non-specific. Tell me like what movie you like and why you like it, and why it's better than the other movies in that trilogy."
You've gone way too specific. When I put the net out for you have to like it, I've already fired the whole force. It's done. It's just too late. You know, you don't even need to go that much further.
It's like, well, again, I draw you back to that Leslie Headland like panel that she gave, where it was like, what's your favorite what's your favorite Star Wars movie or TV show? And she was just like, I love all of Star Wars because I've never watched Star Wars and I can't think of a single specific Star Wars movie or TV show to name right now. Like that was literally it. And if I had someone like that, I would just say, look, okay, you clearly have no knowledge of the product that you're working in. You're out. I don't want you here. I want people who care about this brand and this franchise.
Well, I think DeMeo had the best quote when he said, you have to respect the work before you're allowed to add to its legacy.
Yep.
And especially the word legacy is something that isn't respected, because they don't see it as a legacy. They see it as a problem. Like, all of this stuff was wrong, and I know better. And so I think unless you see it as something that has a legacy, something that you must respect, something that you now have, and your children should see it rather than it being ruined and replaced by something you personally did, I don't think you're ever going to be able to make something better. Because if you think about all our IPs, you have a bit of survival bias that the IPs that we currently think about and care about are the ones that were good enough to be passed on for 100 years in the first place. And so we only talk about the best ones. And they're essentially wiping out the cream of the crop and replacing it with stuff we'd forget, or that will be forgotten.
No, I agree. Just before I go on with this, I just wanted to point out this one. What's your favorite game? I play Nintendo.
I love Nintendo.
That's literally a grandma answer too. Like it's what grandmas say. They're like, "Oh, you playing your Nintendo when you're playing like Halo 3?" You're like, what?
I remember that video. It was like her first YouTube video, and like some like influencer came on. They were like, "Oh, what's your favorite video game?" Because she was like, "Yeah, I'm mad into video games. I can't get enough of them." It's like, "Oh, cool. What's your favorite one?" And there was this moment of absolute panic on her face, like, "Oh fuck, I've been asked a specific question and I don't know how to answer it." And she just goes, "I play Nintendo." I thought that was great.
It all Pac-Man or something, you know, like
just anything.
Just Tetris.
Yeah, just name a game, just like anything. Pokemon,
Legend
whatever.
of Mario.
The thing is, Bree's audience, I doubt they're the biggest gamers anyway, so it was a weird lie to begin with. She could have said a hobby that she actually enjoyed, and probably the audience would have liked it more.
Yeah, well, it's her. That was such a strange time. It was such a weird time because for an actor to make a YouTube channel because there was nothing to do, I guess, at the time for her, it was the most disingenuous content. It was so hard to watch. It was really weird. It was like jarring because it was like she was playing a character within a character to try to be a YouTuber. It was so weird.
Yeah, when you're pretending that you don't know what you're doing, but you've got 4 different camera angles that are all edited together, It doesn't come across as.
Oh yeah, she's like, I'm not doing. I'm just doing this myself, and I don't really know what I'm doing, and it's all like super professional.
Four different
like,
parts of the room.
Yeah.
Well, I remember, like, she had a couple of influencers on, and it was like, oh my god, I didn't know you were going to be calling right now. And it's like her living room is fucking pristine, and she's got like, professionally done makeup and hair and stuff.
So your publicist hadn't set it up
I had
3 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's like I had no idea this was going to happen at this specific moment. Yeah,
it's like one of those ads from the 90s where it's like, oh, I didn't see you there.
Yeah.
It's like, please stop it.
All she had to do is watch any of ours like first couple of videos, and you'd be like, oh, okay, I need a potato camera, no audio setup, and just be awful and awkward, and then that'd have been real content. But no, it's like overly produced and ridiculous.
Yeah. But I think she learned from that fairly quickly, because I don't think the YouTube channel was a huge hit.
Nope.
I'm just taking a wild guess on that one.
It was a great time though for showing just how much actors are not people. The amount of crazy absolute nonsense that like Madonna gets up to, or Sam Smith.
And they don't know how to human,
you're not
do
a
they?
human being. Like how is this what you do when you're sitting on your own for more than a week? How do you fall into that state of disrepair?
Wasn't Madonna like recording a video in a bath filled with milk and petals floating on the top of it? And it's like, oh my god, like you and I, we're all just the same now because of this pandemic. It's really leveled us. Like, really?
Some of the funniest entertainment I've ever seen though was Ozzy Osbourne trying to use a voice-activated car. I mean, it was like he just wanted it to return the radio on. It was like winding down the windows. It was doing everything. Couldn't understand him at all.
I think probably the low point for celebrities wasn't when they tried to do Imagine.
Oh, I was about to say that.
God.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
In their mansions, on their balconies with all their like horses and shit. Imagine no possessions. It's easy if you try. Like you eat my. No, come on.
That did a lot of damage to the whole idea of celebrity.
It was Gal Gadot's idea, right?
I think it was, yeah.
Oh.
Again, like not a natural singing voice. Like, God, I love Gal Gadot, but like her voice is not it's not conducive to singing, I don't think.
I mean, presumably she'd be singing in Snow White. Auto-tuned, maybe.
I think that she'll be auto-tuned within an inch of her life. Because even with the interviews she was doing with Rachel Zegler, like I was listening to her and thinking, God, you sound rough. You sound like Aquafina or something. Like you've got you've got a smoker's voice. You've got the voice of a 60-year-old smoker. I guess like that's just the way it goes for some people. But oh gosh, it was hard to listen to. And I thought, you're not going to be able to do some big musical number. No freaking way. That's either going to have to be like a double or auto-tuned, like you say.
And it's gonna be painful.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I don't think she's
Robotic
going to be the worst
performance and robotic voice.
I don't think she's going to be the worst aspect of that movie. Put it that way.
Oh no.
But hey, on the plus side, everyone, Blue Beetle comes out like next week. And are you excited?
Doesn't it come out tomorrow?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's tomorrow. Like that's how little I care about it.
It would have been really funny if it had come out last week.
Yeah.
It's like what?
Yeah.
Well,
let me guess. He gets bit by like a radioactive beetle or some shit. Is that what's
No,
going
I
on?
think it gets delivered to him in
blue.
the post, doesn't it?
Well,
I mean, it did for Miss Marvel.
This movie, good lord, this is gonna absolutely like die on its feet. It's projected to have a $30 million opening weekend,
and that's gone up. It used to be 12.
Yeah, I think they're being optimistic there because, well, here we have this article here from the Daily Dot saying people are posting empty Blue Beetle screenings to highlight the film's flop status. Thanks to Barbenheimer, movie theaters are busier than they've been in years, yet there's shockingly little hype for the next superhero blockbuster, Blue Beetle. Blue Beetle fans already accused Warner Brothers of failing to promote it properly, which is true because I've seen no commercials for it at all. Prioritizing the beleaguered Flash over DC's first Latino-led film. I wondered how long it would be before they mentioned that it's Latino-led. Combine this with 2023's palpable superhero fatigue. Oh my god, it is real. And the Hollywood strikes, and it's easy to see why Blue Beetle's flop status became a meme. Amid jokes about the film's dire box office forecast, cinemagoers have started posting evidence of its non-existent ticket sales. And although I can't show it to you, yeah, people are basically posting up pictures of empty cinemas where every single seat is free. Yeah, nobody is interested in watching Blue Beetle.
Yeah, this movie's been done like 18 times already in the last couple of years, and it was done better. You're gonna have the billionaire bad guy that everybody loves. You're gonna have the Blue Beetle getting his powers and then flying through space or something and being really clumsy about it. You're gonna have really forced humor because our boy's in it. I don't remember George Lopez. Yeah, and then you're gonna have the insane character that is the only source of humor and is also a computer genius. It's going to be the same thing. And then, of course, he's going to get bit by radioactive something. That's going to happen. I know it's happening. So,
well, this movie's been marketing on the whole, it's going to be fun and silly angle. Unlike your other superheroes, this one's going to be silly. It's like...
Wasn't that the Marvels? I thought that was the Marvels.
They've done the same thing. Like, today, a load of articles came out going, this is far less serious than other superhero movies.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh God!
Thank God, because like superhero movies are so like dour and serious.
I mean, Thor: Love and Thunder was oppressively serious.
Oh my God,
I just wanted more jokes.
Something else for at that
It's
point
the epitome, I think, of DC just trying to emulate Marvel, but they're trying to emulate the Marvel that was popular like 4 years ago. This movie just feels so dated.
Most popular entries in the MCU, I'd say probably all of them are going to be considered pretty serious. Like, you could argue that the Avengers is trying to balance between comedy and drama and stuff. And it's like, well, yeah, sure, but like a lot of the biggest stuff in that film is very serious. Civil War was obviously serious. Infinity War was super serious. Endgame was serious. The idea that it's like we got them with the fun, non-serious film. It's like, what?
This this film feels like it might have had a chance if it had come out in 2019.
Yep.
Coming out now. Oh man, it's like the generic superhero movie, following on the back of like 2 or 3 other generic DC superhero movies that nobody cared about, but this time starring no one that you've ever heard of, and a character that no one's ever heard of. Like, oh man, everything's going against this film. I almost want it to succeed just because it's like everything seems to be against it.
And it didn't matter so much when Iron Man comes along. Iron Man is not or wasn't at the time, the most famous and successful of the comics runs. He wasn't the most well-known character, but he had the advantage at the time of it being a relatively new thing. So sometimes, occasionally, characters you don't expect in stories you haven't asked for can in fact turn good. The problem with this one is that everything seems to have already been done. You look at it, even just from the trailers, and you can think, well, I've seen that exact same scene in 7 or 8 Marvel films by this point. There's not a huge amount of room for this character to grow in a way that still makes the film unique and deserving of existence, really. Apart from the fact that from the headlines I've seen, it does diversity incredibly well, and it's unapologetically Latino. So that's something.
I mean, that's nice. Like, I don't know if that's enough to like get people to watch the film.
Yeah.
But, it's nice that they're doing it. Like, I feel like every article that talks about this movie feels the need to mention that it's the first Latino-led superhero movie.
In the title.
Great, I guess, but like, yeah, is that enough? Is that enough at this point to get people to watch it? I don't think so. Like, superhero fatigue is absolutely a thing at this point, and this movie is just it's going to be forgotten within like a week. I just feel like
I've had superhero fatigue since I watched Endgame because I felt like I had to, at that point. But it was like four movies before Endgame. I didn't want to watch superhero movies anymore, and that was years ago. So I just can't. It's almost like they wrote the check and did everything 5 years ago, and they're just having to pretty much cash in and be like, just put everything out and be done with it.
I don't know if this is just the protracted like development schedules of Hollywood movies playing a part.
Yep.
But Oliver Morgan says the only advertising that I've seen for Blue Beetle was on Instagram ads, and their big tagline was "He's a superhero." No shit.
Well, damn.
Wow.
Damn.
How original.
One of the things they've been saying about it, like as a selling point, is because his ability is like he can summon weapons and things just from what he knows. There's going to be a lot of sort of homages or whatever to IPs that someone would have growing up. So like you've got the Final Fantasy sword and all that kind of thing. And that's probably why they're saying it's going to be silly, because I would imagine he's going to be stealing a lot of other things from superhero stuff or various different IPs, and you're going to play a game of, I recognize that thing.
His sales pitch is, hey, remember this better thing that I've stolen.
Yeah, and it's now just blue. That's different.
Yep.
It could very well come out like the secret invasion final fight, where they're just using every ability. That could be his fight.
Yeah.
Except from multiple IPs.
I just don't see. I mean, what was the Disprove? What was the budget for Blue Beetle? Do you know?
Oh, I don't know without looking it up.
Because I don't. It's not gonna. I
think it was cheaper than us, like 120 or something, but I don't know without looking.
Oh, that's fine. That's perfect.
Yeah, 120.
Yeah. See, I think they're screwed. Like it could, because I don't know a single person on Earth that even knows what Blue Beetle is, nor that it's even coming out as an actual film. I didn't even know about it until a week or two ago, what the hell Blue Beetle was. So, yeah, I think it's doomed.
I think if you start any review and you're just going, it's Latino, it's like, okay, can you tell me about the movie, please? I just want to know about the movie. I want to know whether it's good. I want to know whether the action's good. What's the acting like? Don't spoil the plot, but at least tell me some kind of thing so I know where it's going a bit. And that's not how it is. Every title is just, you should watch this because of this. No. You've misjudged your entire audience.
It's always tricky as well doing that with those sort of group delineated sort of tropes, I suppose you could call them. So if you say, well, it's a Latino-led film, and then the question is, well, A, I want to know about the film, but B, what is that? And then the response is going to be something like, I guarantee it will be something like, well, family's a really strong influence.
No, not joking. That's literally what they've said.
Oh,
yeah.
good. Oh,
they
how
said
could
it
that
emphasizes the
possibly
family.
have been predicted, as though nobody else does that, and as though that hasn't been a staple of almost every other superhero film. So there's nothing particularly new about that. It's just that it's one of the cliches that's often trotted out, and every group has a cliche. And I don't think it bodes well when that is the answer to that quite important question. If you're selling the film on the basis that it's a Latino-led film, and the only thing you can say about what makes it Latino-led is that it stresses family, then no, I think that you're probably doing your target audience an injustice there as much as anybody else.
Yeah, and we already had that with Coco, and it was fantastic. Okay, it's a great movie. I watch it every time I get drunk because I don't know why. It makes me cry out of every orifice on my body. I just love it. So and we had that, and it was very family. That was the whole point. So like, yeah, they already had that covered.
The weird thing in this, they released one clip, and it's like his family telling him not to jump off a roof, and he just jumps off a roof. So I'm not even sure you're sending the right message that you think you are.
Yeah.
Wasn't the director himself like basically begging people to watch this movie? Yes. Where it's like, because there'd been a line in the trailer originally about Batman being a fascist, and like he was laughing at the backlash to that, like, oh well, if you're triggered by this, then I guess we're hitting the right mark. And then when the box office projections came out for the opening weekend for his film, he was like, oh, please see it. We didn't mean any of that stuff. We just want you to enjoy our movie. It's like, well, you burned your bridges, I'm afraid.
Oops. It's like everybody doesn't believe what we do in our small bubble. Oops.
There's been a few, we've got to come out and support this one or we won't get more. I think there was one article that said there was like 27 different Latino groups had come out and supported it and said, you've all got to get in. And I don't like that kind of marketing where you sort of like, you need to go and watch this movie because this guy has this characteristic. It comes across that you know your movie isn't good enough to stand on its own.
Well, it was the same mentality that drove like flocks of people to go and see Black Panther, where it's like it becomes like a social cause rather than just a movie that should stand on its own merits. It's like you have to go and see this regardless of whether it's good or bad because it just represents the causes that we've decided that you believe in. That's not a valid reason for seeing a film. It should be good in its own right. Black Panther wasn't. I suspect that Blue Beetle won't be either.
And James Gunn, remember, this was the first movie that was supposed to be part of his universe, and now he's rolled back on it and gone, well, we'll see how it performs. It's like, so he's already lost confidence in it.
That was always the case. If The Flash had made $2 billion, which it never would have, but if it did, they would have been like, oh, actually, wait, we might that's the first of the DCU now. That one.
Shit, man. If Black Adam had made like $1 billion, then like we wouldn't even be seeing the James Gunn universe in its current form.
Yeah.
They would have had their existing plans going forward that would have been like focused around The Rock. Essentially, he would have been the centerpiece of like the new DCEU. Never happened, but yeah, this is where DC's at as a brand. It's like they're constantly flitting between different ideas, none of which are working. And I've got no particular reason to believe that James Gunn's version is going to be particularly successful either.
Black Adam was better than The Flash, by the way.
Yes.
But when it comes to superheroes, even if you know nothing about superheroes, you've probably heard of things like Batman, Wonder Woman, The Flash. Nobody's heard of Blue Beetle. The people that are into comics going, no, nobody knows Blue Beetle. So
yeah.
You've chosen a really out there character to push as sort of the start of your franchise. That's not how you do it. You needed to make a big movie with a big name and a big character, and then introduce other people off the back of that, and then build the universe out slowly. I don't even know what the plan was in this. It just came out of nowhere.
There is no plan. It's just like fucking throw in whatever works at the time or whatever new ideas comes into our heads. Yeah, it's just this movie, even for being relatively small budget, I think it's about 150 million, which is comparatively small for a superhero movie. It's not going to get anywhere near that in terms of box office returns.
We'll all forget about it immediately.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. It's like if you're a one-man company, you can fly by the skin of your pants and like nobody really knows, and you can probably pull it off. If you're spending 120, 150 million on a movie, there's enough people involved in that one of them should have a plan. Like there's somebody. Like I've worked at big corporations where they will have you if you don't have a receipt for like a £5 purchase, and I don't know how DC can go through business just signing off $120 million checks and not even care. Like, not even have a plan where it fits into things, or somebody changed and it's got lost in the post somewhere. It's an insane way to run such a massive company.
I think probably Blue Beetle was part of someone's plan from like 3 years ago or 4 years ago. But like we've had so many changes of leadership at DC in the interim that it's essentially irrelevant now. That's the problem. Like they've changed so many times. Like they've had this revolving door of senior executives with their own unique plan for how they're going to fix the DC on film universe, and nobody's had enough time to actually implement anything that they've wanted. You've just had little smatterings of new movies, new ideas. Like look at Batgirl. That was like one regime's aborted plan to like have a new centerpiece for the Batman universe going forward. Then it got shit canned, and like the movie will never see the light of day because they're constantly changing their plans. They're constantly changing their people in charge.
The thing is, when you take over a company, there's supposed to be an element of continuity. So you would take the other guy's plan and slowly morph it over time into your own thing. And there should come some kind of understanding that it's going to take you a few years to move through this kind of area as best you can before you get into your own stuff. But instead, it's like, no, we've just got to cancel everything, but we're not going to cancel everything. So we've got all these things that don't fit anywhere, which ruins your reputation, because if Blue Beetle flops, it will affect people's opinion of James Gunn if they're following this kind of stuff, whether he's had anything to do with it or not.
James Gunn's plan has already been like compromised repeatedly over the past few months. Like he's already said, like he's open to having the Flash come back. He wants to do Wonder Woman 3. So it's like, okay, you're still hanging on to like pieces of this old universe that you're trying to like reboot. So it's not a reboot then. You're keeping pieces of it. In which case, like, well, how do you decide which pieces you keep and which you don't? Like, how does some bits get to stay and others get erased? Like, none of that makes any sense. You either make a clean break or you don't. This is the problem that they've got.
It's a big mess. It's just they're different actors, different movies, different headliners. Like there's a superhero that has 3 different actors coming in and out, and people getting fired left and right, Cavill out, and I'm just like, it's hard to follow anymore.
They've got to break out of this fucking endless cycle that they're in, where like they're trying to make changes on the fly while movies are still in production. So you're never able to make a clean break. They actually just need to have a couple of years where nothing gets made. Like, get the current slate of stuff out the way and then take some time off, then make the announcement that you're rebooting it, and then start afresh. Don't do this thing where you're still got movies in the pipeline and everything's just a constant stream of stuff, because then nobody knows what's supposed to be canon and what isn't.
Yeah, they were trying to recreate something that will never happen again, probably, with that Marvel universe, that 10-year span where every actor, everything was related all the way down the line until Endgame. And then that was it for everybody. And they already had signed the check over on the other side. So now they were trying to recreate it for all these years and just fumbling at almost every single release, in my opinion.
When you said we had like a character with multiple actors, I was like, is he talking about Batman, Joker, or Superman?
All of them. And then also, the Flash. The Flash, there was talks of Ezra Miller being in it or not. I would have preferred it if he wasn't. He got a real punchable face. I don't like looking at it. But
yeah,
he's in that. So it's just too much going on. And when you think of Thor, you think of Chris Hemsworth, bar none, and that's the end of the story. But every single character over there, from the DC universe, is just different actors. They never stick with the same people, and they start going into the multiverse, and it's just too much. It's too much going on.
Yeah.
And when you come out and say something like, well, the Flash is supposed to reboot the universe into the James Gunn universe, and then you're like, well, maybe not this one. Maybe not this one. It doesn't work. Just pick a line and stick with it.
Yep.
And it's not just because we follow these things more closely than probably most average theatre goers do, for example. So there are complaints that we will have that normal theatre goers will not have. But I think a lot of the problems with this false restart, or the number of false restarts, is that it does it in ways that are going to be impacting normal theatre goers as well. If, for example, James Gunn wants to kick off his new Gunverse, and one of the first films in it is called Wonder Woman 3, in nobody's mind can that possibly be conceived of as anything other than a continuation of something they haven't seen. So why the hell are we going to bother going to try and invest in something midway through a story? Is what your average theatre goer's thing's going to be. It's also kind of where I am as well, because I'm not going to go back and rewatch Wonder Woman to try and remember what happened in those films. I don't care enough. And it's being dragged down as well by, obviously, the travails of the MCU. The MCU has defined the superhero genre for more than a decade. It's hard to escape that kind of shadow. I don't think DC ever will escape that kind of shadow. So combined the underperformance of MCU projects, the general tiredness and fatigue with superheroes, plus the false starts, and this is just not going to go anywhere. I just think you might get the occasional mid-budget, mid-performing thing. Superman will always draw people to seats, but Blue Beetle, nah, not sure about that one. I am sure it's not going to work.
I think Al shot down on a whole like Wonder Woman 3 thing. They came up with like their auto plaids currently.
That was weird.
Yeah.
That sounded like a similar thing that Henry Cavill probably had. Oh yeah, you're definitely going to be Superman. There's no Superman movie planned, and he's like, oh, what?
I just don't know how you can shit can like Superman, right? You can shit can Batman, but you're like, oh yeah, Wonder Woman, we're definitely going to stick with her and do like Wonder Woman 3, even though the second one was an absolute disaster and the director's no longer working with us. No. Is it literally just like Gal Gadot's hot, so we just want to keep her around? I'm
not even sure that they do. They definitely do want to keep her around. I mean, I could believe that James Gunn understands that she's not a long-term worthwhile investment for Wonder Woman. No offense. I think you're gonna want to get an actress, and one that can. Okay, I'll just say you want to get an actress. That's kind of what I'm doing.
Who can act.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was like someone came in, they took over the boss job as James Gunn, and he just like, I'm going to keep you all on side because I have no plans. I don't know whether I'm going to keep you all there. So I'm just going to be really nice to you all, keep you all on my good side, and then as we decide, we'll just do it as and when. So it was probably a bit more misleading than going, oh yeah, we're definitely going to give you this. It was probably more, yeah, if we, we're thinking about doing Wonder Woman 3. We don't have anything yet, but we'll keep you in mind for it when everything's ready. I think it was more show business talk rather than plans.
Yeah.
Well, maybe as with Superman, obviously he didn't choose to keep Henry Cavill on. Instead, he signed Henry Cavill's clone. Maybe he's just waiting for a clone of Gal Gadot to emerge, and then that'll be her going forward.
A younger, more malleable, and cheaper clone.
Younger, one far younger and more powerful. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I keep forgetting, like, she's pushing 40 now, isn't she, Gal Gadot? I think she's like 38, 39, something like that.
Yeah, as far as I know.
I mean, you'd never know. She's aging well. But, yeah, man. It's you do want someone who can emote a little bit more, I suppose.
I mean, a lot of people share around the clips, right? All of her highlights from the other films. The perception is that she's going to get in a lot of roles. She's got her own. She led a movie, right? Like Bloodstone, something like that. It came out on Netflix recently, and no one cared.
Yeah.
The reviews were awful.
Well, I don't know if you saw her in what's that one with Ryan Reynolds and The Rock?
Oh, Red Notice. Yeah.
Red Notice, yeah. Like she had to play a kind of femme fatale in that, and
yeah,
she couldn't do it.
Poor
I think
lady.
Wonder Woman just very much like worked around her limitations as an actress. It's like they knew what she could deliver, and they worked with that, which was very, very smart. But when you try to go beyond that, you're not going to get much from her. Never mind. On a sad note, I just want to make you guys aware: Feminist Frequency is shutting down. That's Anita Sarkeesian's channel. I'm really sorry, guys. I know you were glued to it. Literally dozens of people were tuned into that every week.
Remember, I've been told we need to get rid of the past and move into the future, and so in this one case, I think I'll take your advice.
Yeah. Like how is that a thing? Like when I see the channel now, like I looked at it when I heard the news that it was shutting down, and I was like, oh, okay, what are they getting? It's like they're literally getting a couple of hundred views per video, and this is the channel that redefined the entire video game industry. How?
I mean, it was like it's been dead for like forever. This is just the official announcement,
They were probably shouldn't have said the statement everything's sexist and everything's racist.
Well, that was a mistake.
That was dumb. So, I mean, 99% of people don't agree with you. So that's probably why their channel died completely.
Is that competition? You don't have to go to a dedicated channel to get that kind of thing anymore. You can go to any mainstream games publication and find almost exactly the same opinions with a much bigger resource base funding it. They're also losing viewers, a lot of them, but nevertheless, that is the case. They've been outcompeted in their own weird little grubby domain.
Yeah. But like the impact that they had, I guess, in terms of the whole video game industry, like genuine developers were like bending the knee to these guys, bringing them on to like consult on their games. Like, wasn't Neil Druckmann a big fan of this stuff? That's why you got the Last of Us 2.
A big way they got in at the beginning, if we guys were around when this first happened, was just being like, women get told to kill themselves in video games. It's horrifying. And then all the men were like, that's normal. Like, what do you mean?
It's called banter.
But like, they legit made a lot of headway with that, because people, I think a lot of normal people were like, oh my god, I had no idea how horrible that there's this whole thing happening, and it's like, we need to change that. We need to make gaming more welcoming to women.
That's the thing about it. You're playing off people's good morals. It's like, you're a horrible person. It's like, what? I'm not a horrible person. Yeah, you are. You're doing this. It's really damaging people. Like, well, I don't want to hurt people. How can I fix this? So, well, you've got to employ me. If you employ me and give me money, I'll solve all of your problems. Mm-hmm. And then they come in and they go, well, also, just look at your business. It's all men. Obviously, they can't talk about these kind of things. They won't know anything about it. So what you need to do is hire a load of people who think like me. Then the institution reinforces itself from the inside. And that's what you've had in the entire gaming industry, to the point where now... What was Blizzard doing at one point after they were called out for all this stuff? They changed a painting to a bowl of fruit. So they were literally removing women from their games for fruit. Yep. That's how stupid the stuff gets when you get called out on it. And with stuff like Blizzard, you do wonder how many guilty consciences there were as well at the time.
I know this one as well. Like Neil Druckmann was a huge Anita fan. He loved getting rid of co-workers who were responsible for the games that he took credit for. So yeah, didn't he force out the woman who wrote the Nathan Drake series, like the Uncharted series? Like she was responsible for the first 3 and then essentially pushed her out of the 4th one, and that's why the 4th one is kind of the shit one.
I thought she also had a big hand in The Last of Us Part 1. I thought. I might be wrong.
I mean, after The Last of Us Part 2,
Amy
a lot of
Hennig.
people like to look back and wonder what exactly happened, because it can't be that Neil was responsible for the good shit in Last of Us Part 1 if he's responsible for Part 2, but sometimes it is unfortunately the case that people are capable of some fun and good stuff and also shit stuff.
Here's what tends to happen, right? And it happens in the publishing world all the time. Like authors have their proclivities, they have their bad habits and stuff, but in the early stages of their career, there's a really good editor that's got a lot of power that can overrule them and like rein them in to some extent. Then if they happen to become super successful, they become more powerful and like they can indulge all of their worst excesses as a creative force, and that's why they tend to go downhill. And that's, I think, what happened to Neil Druckmann.
It's interesting to think about because he did not revise The Last of Us's ending in the TV show version. That came out clean. Joel was still absolutely in the right. You know what I mean?
Well, we perceive it that way. I don't know how much they're going to fuck with that in season 2.
Yeah, but like you'd think that he's already fucked with it in The Last of Us Part 2, right? So you'd think when he's making the TV show, which was after, that he would do it accommodatingly.
Well, put it this way, right? We perceive the changes that had already been made to Joel's character and Ellie's characters versus the games. There's a definite difference in their dynamic between the TV show and the video games,
but not in the sense of The Last of Us Part 2's departure.
No, but I think you can use it as the building blocks of a case against Joel, in that like he's more emotionally driven, he's less in control of himself, less capable of making rational judgments, and more prone to act on impulse because he's more damaged in the TV
as much
show.
As that's true, they both versions of Joel killed 50, well, probably more in the game because it's a game, but they both killed a shit ton of people to save her for the reason of wanting to save her, right? Like there's loads of good reasons on top of it. The second that they followed even slightly along from the game of taking her permission away, taking her knowledge away, I was like, oh shit. I would have thought Neil would rewrite that to help people be on board with the idea that Joel was wrong, but he didn't. But of course, I think the stronger counter to this would be that Neil always thought Joel was wrong, even in the first game.
Well, I think so, yeah. I think he's so confident in the plot of the second game that he doesn't feel the need to rewrite the storyline of the first, like in a film sense, because he sees it as a natural follow-through. So he feels like that game justifies what happens to Joel, which is a real shame because it really doesn't.
And they've said they're going to separate the second game into at least 2 seasons. So there's plenty of time for them to build Joel into someone who's just getting his comeuppance kind of thing by the end of the second season.
I think that's what they're going for, and I can sense the little tendrils of shittiness that are reaching out for this plot. I think it was held in check to some extent with season 1 because they had to in order to make it land. But I think once it's been a big success, which is great, but I think that's going to unleash them with season 2. So buckle up, because I think season 2 is going to be a wild ride.
Yep.
Well, I'm curious if they'll kill Joel on time. I don't think so. I don't think they're going to lose Pedro that early, because that would be like episode 1 if they're going to be, adapt faithfully.
No, because there's a big time jump, and I think they can explore some of that time period and fill in those gaps. But I don't think it's going to be to Joel's benefit. I think they're going to try and...
Well, yeah, and they'll do the same thing broadly, which is that she'll find out the truth and he'll have nothing to say except, yeah, I really like you and I didn't want you to die. Wah.
Yeah.
Instead of they were fucking crazy assholes who were trying to, cut you up for parts. Fuck that.
Yeah. But, well, hey ho. The sad thing is, feminist frequency is shutting down. So I think we can we can have a moment of silence for that. You made your mark on the video game industry, and it was not a pretty one.
Nope.
Did she ever do those movies that she crowdfunded for, or what, like documentaries?
Well,
well, it's because it's Pop Culture Detective on YouTube is the guy that would be what's his name Macintosh, something Macintosh. That's who she used to. I don't know if she dated him or whatever, but they used to work together, and that's why her videos had production value. I still think they were terrible. The scripts were horrifying, but Jonathan McIntosh, that's his name. So he was with her, and they made videos together. And the big issue was that she would make criticisms of video games that were fucking inaccurate, like talking about how women are treated and how point systems would be created to encourage people to take out women or something, as in kill them or run them over. It'd be like GTA or Hitman
GTA,
or whatever.
yeah.
And she was just fucking wrong. And a lot of the time there was an indication. It's like, wait a minute. It's like saying just things that give away you're not a fan at all, like saying Mr. Skywalker or something when you're talking about Star Wars. You're like, what? Just weird little lines like that and stuff. But yeah, they separated. He went on and made his own YouTube channel that's pretty successful from what I'm aware of anyway. I'm not going to say that approve of its quality for scripts. I just know that the editing, right? He took all of that with him. She doesn't have it anymore. And so like her channel just dried the fuck up. Nobody watched her stuff anymore. And as for if she completed all of her promises for what she was funded for, I'm going to go ahead and guess she didn't, but I don't know for sure.
yeah, I mean, well, you had a bunch of them, didn't you? You had so Zoe Quinn was going to make a video game, wasn't she?
I
think she.
This is digging into old history that I can't fucking remember all the details of anymore.
Because why would
yeah.
anyone want to?
Because why
Yeah,
would we?
I'm not an expert on it, but like I seem to recall like she got like 60, 70K in like Kickstarter backing to make like her own video game, and then never delivered the video game, and then just stopped updating the Kickstarter page. So essentially, like the money had been paid to her, and she just kept it.
Sounds about right.
And delivered absolutely nothing. Now that is, I don't know much about her as a person, but that just seems like really scummy behavior.
Yeah.
It also seems an entirely pointless behavior. Why go to all the trial and stress and effort, and it is all of those things of making your own game when you can just walk into the offices of a studio and ruin somebody else's, which she was apparently very good at.
Well, why not do both?
Well,
Like that's you can pocket the money from people who want to invest in your game and then deliver absolutely fuck all, and then you can also ruin other people's games and charge them for the privilege. It's win-win for you.
Dude, it's like, I'm just checking it out now. It's like downright nostalgic. You sort by popular videos on Feminist Frequency, and it's like number 1, Damsel in Distress, Part 1, Tropes versus Women in Video Games. I remember when this came out. It's 10 years old.
What's it got?
It's got 3.4 million views.
Okay, that's pretty
It's
big.
a classic at this point. I imagine the comment section is just fucking... Oh, it's turned off, of course.
Okay. We found out why people were watching it then.
Good lord.
That would probably be a funny thing to go back and visit. Be like, listen, remember this shit, guys?
I need to make some videos about video games, like tropes versus men in video games or something, and just fucking ride that bandwagon. Jesus. Yeah, what a shame. What a shame that that's their lasting legacy. Essentially ruined an entire industry that was kind of naive and trusting and just in its infancy almost, and just kind of took advantage of it to grift off it.
It's cultural damage, and it sowed like a lot of discontent and started to draw battle lines, like making groups of people that would fight each other instead of just trying to have people talk to each other about hey, can we get in the simplistic way of just like, I want more women leading things in video games. If you just said that, I think it'd be much more chill than saying like, did you know Zelda treats its women horribly? And you're sitting there like, what? What's happening?
I'm gonna cherry pick a bunch of examples to back up my points, and then not acknowledge anything that contradicts it. Of course,
you can kill women in Hitman.
Yeah,
How's
you can
a
do it in Grand Theft Auto as well.
Yeah, dude. In Grand Theft Auto, you can do it in first person, which is awesome.
Then we'll conveniently ignore the fact that you can kill men as well. It's just,
It's too easy to parody. It's like if you have just a clip in GTA of running up to someone with an RPG and you just fire it right next to it, everything blows up. And she's like, "This affects women the most." Like,
yeah.
Okay.
This is the inherent misogyny of video games.
Wasn't that a quote though, that men die in war, but it's the women that stay at home that are affected the worst by it?
I think it was Hillary Clinton.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she was
Yeah,
like, the
it was
women
like,
are the ones that suffer because they lose their family members.
Yeah, it was literally men die, women are most affected.
Imagine dying in a foreign country, like looking at the stars, and then it's like, oh man, now your wife's she's gonna suffer way more than you did just now. It's like, no,
yeah. Well, imagine her doing a talking head segment. It's like, my husband had the selfish inclination to die. What a bastard.
Yeah. He dies and loses his family. That feels worse. I don't know.
He's bleeding out. And they're like, think of your family, and the blood goes back in. You're like, yeah, okay.
Fine. There's been a few things like that. I remember another headline that was like 20% of homeless people are women. Like, hang on. You can't give us that stuff.
Yeah.
Hold on. What's the other percentage? Is that
Yeah, it's like we've got to deal with that 20%. The other 80, nah, they can take their chances. They'll be all right.
Yeah,
I think that's how a lot of this turned around, was because it played off people being genuinely good people, which is why it's such a horrible thing to do. Because if they were actually the horrible people you're portraying them as, then it wouldn't have worked because they wouldn't have cared in the first place. And so that's what had to happen. They had to realize that, okay, well, if we give in to this demand and try and change, you're just going to ask for something else, and then the next thing, and the next thing. And so I might as well just say no immediately, and that way I'm not going to ruin my own project. And so it took time to build up a sort of a resistance as everyone just got annoyed that it was always going to be another problem.
There was a real cultural momentum behind it, I think. And so you didn't want to be that one company that stood in the way of progress and equality, because that's how it was branded. Because otherwise it would hurt your bottom line. And so they just accommodated it. And they would say, yeah, sure, come in, consult on our game. I'm sure you've got some really valid points that can help us out here.
As I think Disparu mentioned, it's very much based on just a natural indication of, like, when people highlight this as an issue, you're inclined to be like, oh shit, okay, yeah, let's get this sorted out. As you never think like, oh, they're doing this for their own gain. Like,
and that's how it always was. You can fix this by hiring me. And there's a lot of that with actors as well. I think this role needs more movies. It's like, oh, and you just happen to fill that role. It's very often whether or not they're arguing for somebody else to get paid more money.
Coincidental.
There's outside pressure that comes into it as well, so it doesn't necessarily explain the first instance of it. But once, say, you're into Sarkeesian, you've got a platform, a lot of other companies which will look at you and say, oh my goodness, I really don't want to be Sarkeesian today. And so if she comes at me, I'm just going to say yes, because it's better to have her on the inside breaking things than on the outside telling everyone how appalling we are. That's a big reputational risk for the company. And then it filters up through when, because games have a studio system just as movies do. So it's not even every individual games company that's affected. But what they do need to do is, for example, to say to the big company that owns it, well, look, your corporate equality score will be furthered if you follow this pre-planned agenda for equality and fairness. Then decisions will filter down. And so these things are imposed even when they're not necessarily wanted. It's a very complex ecosystem, but it's very easily exploited by people with the right characteristics.
In gaming, though, it was interesting, because that used to be the industry where people would go, your game is awful. It's like, no, you're just bad at it. What you actually need to do is get good. And like they would just tell their customers they were awful at playing their game and that they needed to play it for another 50 hours to get better at it. That would be the kind of attitude that Quake 3 had. And so there was a huge change to, I'm not bad, the game is bad. And I think all that came along in the same kind of time period.
My stepdad had a game on the N64, I think it was, called Wave Race. And if you lost or just made a wrong turn, the game would overtly say, you suck. It was great.
Yeah.
I always felt like the passive aggression of video games when you die, that it'd be like, want to play on easy?
Yeah. Yeah. You can't handle this game on normal mode. Try easy.
It's like
you retard.
It's like video game journalists would shit all over like From Software games because they were like, these games need an easy mode because they just sucked at them, and it was great.
Yeah.
There was that one video where the guy couldn't even do the first jump in the tutorial. That was the video will go down.
Was that
forever.
Cup Man or something?
Yeah. And it was even telling him on the screen how to do it, just couldn't jump.
Yeah. Let's do a few super chats, shall we?
Yeah.
We are ready, and we've got them here. Yeah, here we go. First one is from Mr. Luca, who says, "Should I buy Hot Toys Vader for £429?" So Hot Toys are like the creme de la creme of like the statue world.
Mm-hmm.
Should you go for a Darth Vader one for that amount of money?
Nope.
Okay.
Well, there you go.
Hell no.
I would say if you can afford it, if you're quite rich and that's no big deal for you, then yeah, sure, get it because it will bring you lots of happiness. If
How
not,
much is the Hot
yeah,
Toys Rose Tico one though? Because that would be stiff competition.
there is no such thing.
$7.
See, this is proof that everything's racist against women.
Yeah. Rose Tico. Remember her. Elsie Le Pen says, "Hail Open Bar. Scott Pilgrim's Netflix series trailer dropped, which got me curious on the panel's thoughts on Edgar Wright's OG Scott Pilgrim film. Also, Mahler happy early 250 episodes of EFAP."
Yay, thank you.
I liked Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I thought it was perfectly fine. It was a fun movie. I didn't think too much about it afterwards. It was just, meh, fine.
I remember liking the direction and the editing and stuff. I didn't care that much about the story, I think. I can't remember. I need to rewatch it. I haven't seen it since it came out.
What story?
It's a great question. Because I can't remember. It's a bit disjointed. And of course, coming off the Cornetto trilogy hype for Edgar Wright, and then I'm like, oh, that's okay. That's not quite. All right.
Would you say, would it be fair to say, like, outside of the Cornetto trilogy movies, Edgar Wright's not really that good?
I don't think he's reliable outside of them, because that's the thing, right? Three's a pattern. So you're like, oh, he's just fantastic, and then you're like, oh wait,
Because I'm thinking about like Baby Driver,
Mm.
yeah, Last Night in Soho, like Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
There's very much pieces lacking in those films compared to his best. And you know what's crazy is I feel like Simon Pegg, he's lacking a lot in more of his modern projects compared to those, and it's just like maybe you guys should have just stuck together. I don't know. Maybe like, I would rather them gamble on making another one of them at this point, because everything I see, there was this TV show, I don't know if anyone saw it, called, I think it was called Truth Seekers. It's starring Nick Frost, and I believe part of it was written by Simon Pegg. One of the worst comedies I've ever seen. Like, it was absolute cringe, and I was just like, "What happened, guys? What happened?" I didn't hate Paul. Paul was alright. Remember that? Anyone?
Yeah. I don't care for Seth Rogen, so
It was. That's kind of That's kind of why I'm trying to be like, it's
yeah.
Cobus Joubert says, "Little Platoon, I love you." That's
I love
what
you
said,
too.
not me. RRTNZ says, "Hail Drinker and Co. Chuck Norris can hit you so hard that you bleed someone else's blood, which is also a great reason to review Dodgeball. Cheers." It is a good reason to review it. Not that you need a good reason to review it. It's just a good movie. Glippy says, "With Disney ceasing physical media in Australia after Guardians 3, we probably won't be getting Indy 5 down here. Oh no, what a shame." Yeah, I'm sure you'll just have to do without it. Are they really ceasing physical media there? That's weird.
I feel like I hear more about that every day, like less and less physical media, which is sad.
I mean, you can understand like a company doing it, but not an entire nation, unless it's like a law. That's weird.
Yeah. Well, it's just in a territory, I suppose. Callie Fall says, "Recommendation: The Last Voyage of the Demeter." Is that good? I've heard bad
things. Yeah, mixed things about that one. So that's the one. If I always get the name confused, but I'm pretty sure that's the one that's set. Is it on the boat with Dracula going over to? Plymouth?
Yes.
Yeah. Movie Cynic has watched it and didn't. He thought it was mid. I haven't seen it. I love the premise, but I think it's quite easy to make something like that mid at best, just because there's not a huge amount to draw from. And whenever you try and get a film writer to create something brand new of their own accord, very rarely does that work particularly well. So, yeah, not sure if I'll even bother with that one, but mixed reception, I've heard.
Also from RRTNZ says, people in their early 20s and their ability to sound smug when talking complete shit. Well done, Rachel. You've made us hate Gen Z even more. I'm not going to argue with that.
Yeah, I mean, what can you say?
Stephen
It's
Bobo
one of those
says,
things where, isn't it sort of, if you're really stupid, you kind of think you know nothing, but then there's a point where you think you know everything, and then after that you realize how much you don't know. So there's a
well, yeah, it's the arrogance of youth, isn't it? Like you're just convinced by your own self-confidence that you're awesome and you know everything, and then you learn.
That's about 80% of young people go into university and come out as midwits. So there is also that as a big problem. They all come out thinking they've been educated.
That's called Dunning-Kruger, by the way, where you go from thinking I'm an idiot to I'm really smart to I'm an idiot again. You learn more.
Stephen Bobo says, Drinker, YouTuber 48 Productions came out with an in-depth closer look video, a 1 hour and 21 minutes video on Cloud Strife. Well, excellent. It's good. I would like to learn more about his character. I like him. Cirrhosis of Liver says, Hail Drinker and friends, did any of you have any inspiration for the content or your delivery of your material in your videos on your channel?
So, like other creators, or what made us?
Well, yeah, like why did you decide to do, like in your case, like why did you do super long form content in the style that you do it?
Because I hated getting told by everybody what the rules of YouTube are, that you have to be of a particular length, you have to, and that even if you have a lot to say, that you got to shorten it down. And I was like, nah, fuck that. Which
fair enough.
Just a rebel.
Well, yeah, I used to be like, I'm gonna make a video that is 30 minutes long, and it's gonna be part 1 of like 6. This is gonna be insane. These days, I was thinking, Drinker probably remember, I was talking about whether or not I'd split the Ant-Man video in 2, because there's 2 very distinct sections. It's going through the movie chronologically, and then going through the movie in a meta sense, all the stuff surrounding it, different interviews, stuff that's to do with it, and then, looking at all the aspects as a pattern throughout the film and stuff. And it's just like, well, yeah, you could. And it's like, I could also not. That was enough to convince me to be long.
I was trying to look out for your financial well-being, Walter, but far be it from me. What about the rest of you guys? Like, what was your inspiration for like why you do things the way you do on YouTube?
Well, mine's real dumb. I saw a guy. I worked at a company for a long time, and I saw a guy release a video, and he said he worked at that company that I worked at, right? And he worked there for like 3 months, and he's like, "Here's my story," and I watched it, and it was like day one, like stuff that wasn't very spicy, I guess. And I was there for like 11 years, so I just made a video in the same kind of way. But my stories were wild because I had a weird ass boss back in the day. There was like prostitutes and everything. It was freaking crazy. And I just talked about it for 20 minutes. I had to film it like 4 times because I had no idea what I was doing. And then I just put it out, and it hit 1 million views. It was really weird. And that's why I do it now. Still do
it. Damn. Well, like if it ain't broke, don't fix it, I suppose.
Hell yeah.
Like Disparu, Platoon, have you got any like inspiration for why you do the style that you do?
For me, like there's always been advice you should make stuff you're interested in. And I think many years ago I was trying to make gaming videos, and then it was just fell out of that for whatever reason. I'm kind of the thing, if there's no kind of traction, I'm very likely to try something else and get distracted by a new kind of thing. But then I came back to it. I think the videos I started watching was Nerdrotic and his Doctor Who stuff. And as I was watching his, there kept being these thumbnails in the side of just a white screen. And I never watched them because the thumbnails annoyed me. And then eventually I clicked one to watch what it was, and it was Az talking about his Batwoman stuff. And then I got hooked on the Batwoman reviews. And so I think those thumbnails were kind of a two-pronged thing. It was like, on the one hand, people won't click it because it's weird, but they're also very recognizable when you realize you like the stuff, and so you click them immediately. So I think that could kind of count both ways.
I like the whiteboard.
Yeah, it's one of the easiest ways to do thumbnails. Very recognizable.
He's got one that just says, "I hate the critical drinker." It's because I made him play The Last of Us 2 so that we could do a happy hour on it.
So yeah, I mean, there was a time I did send Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers a drunk message going like, "Do you need anyone to make videos?" And then he got back to me and started doing videos for Geeks and Gamers Play. And then it was Wheel of Time, where I needed a review format, and I basically copied as is Batwoman stuff, and then over time morphed it into my own kind of thing with different series. So my videos are kind of a compilation of everybody I watched. And I could point to different things that inspired different things and the styles that I tried at the time. So there's a lot. It's weird being on streams with people that I used to watch that made me do this stuff in the first place. Very strange.
Oh yeah, same. Mine is, well, I always wrote stuff a lot, and writing is just the only thing I was halfway good at. And I'd always taken an interest in sort of film and pop culture, but mostly just writing, literature, whatever. So there's a bunch of like literary inspirations, but then I worked a boring job, lovely people, but really, really boring job in 2021. And just sat there watching YouTube videos, came across Mauler and Drinker and Rags and EFAP, and just religiously watched hours and hours and hours and thought, you know what, I'll have a go. And here we are. And it's still a bit weird, but yeah, that's the story.
Well, dude, you run a fucking brilliant channel. To know that we would have had anything to do with it inspiration-wise, it's like, yeah, like, we had a positive effect on the world.
It's like I've inspired someone better than me. Like, yes.
Go out there and make me proud, boy.
Yeah. Cirrhosis of Liver also says, Drinker, have you met any of your open bar guests or co-hosts in real life? Obviously, you've met some at Anime Matsuri. Any others? No, I mean, that's pretty much it. So, yeah, met Gary, met Camelot, met Nick Rakita, met Melanie Mack. Yeah, like those guys. But that was the first instance, I guess, of meeting other content creators. I'm hoping to do it a lot more. I know that Gary and the other guys are going to be coming over to the UK in September, and I'm going to go down to London and meet them. So hopefully we'll see other people there. I really hope I see Az there.
Az isn't going as far as I know.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Mauler, do you want to go to London in September?
Maybe someday.
It would, yeah, that would be nice to meet some of my UK compatriots and Platoon as well. Actually, I don't know if you're based in London.
No, I used to be, but I'm out of London. And I have a nasty feeling I'm in Italy that week, so I might not be there. If I'm not in Italy that week, then I will be going.
Okay, sounds good then. Yum Yum Eat 'em Up says, Evening, gents. Streamer Asmongold reacted to your video on Snow White. When you name drop Mauler, he praised his 8-hour takedown of DS2. Says he's watched it twice. It seems you have a fan, long man.
It's surprising how many people like that's their favorite video of my stuff. It always comes up, but yeah, because a lot of people fucking hate DS2, and they're correct, by the way, to hate it. That's the correct feeling to have. Okay, but yeah, it was. I watched his coverage of your video, Drinker. It's kind of neat. He agreed with what you had to say, and he praised both of us as creators.
We should chat to him sometime. See what we can do together. Angry Batman says, thanks to Drinker, Mauler, and Platoon for getting me through some tough divorce times with their awesome videos. Keep up and never change. Thank you, sir. And I'm glad we could help you out. I'm sorry you've had some tough times recently. Grimnack says, hell yeah, open bar. EFAP 5th is on track to land on my birthday, and today is my Friday from working 4/12s. Cheers, gentlemen. Well, thank you, sir. And I'm glad you can enjoy a night off.
Yeah, well, we'll be going for 24 hours, so I'm sure you'll catch it. It was funny. Short Fat Otaku was like, I don't know if I can make it because I'll be busy at on someone's stream at some point. I was like, you can't make it for the full 24 hours. Like, you can't pop in once. He was like, Yeah, okay, maybe I can actually. Yeah, yeah, right.
So when does the 5th fall, or the 5th anniversary?
That would be the 26th. Of course, all of you invited. You're welcome to join at any time. Just fall in, fall out. We'll be covering videos more than likely throughout.
Nice.
Gothic phone maybe as well.
What was it? Asher's Brainpan says Corridor Digital poured some fuel on the fire of the strikes by releasing the second part of their AI anime. Further proof that if done right, AI can be a useful tool in the creation process. I mean, I'm sure it can, yeah.
The second one, I think they've tried to make up for what happened last time by bringing in artists to, I think, either correct and post or pre or something. I remember reading comments saying they've done it better this time. They've pissed off less people. So it's mainly about, give people work.
What a benchmark for success, eh? It's like, well, we've pissed off less people this time around. So, yeah. We're on the up. Waylon Resurface, this is a serious question for all of us. Who would you rather have use your face as a chair, Brie Larson or Rachel Zegler? I'm going to let the rest of the panel field this one.
Yeah, I would say Rachel Zegler. Like she'd smell better. I don't know why.
that wasn't the reasoning I thought you'd go.
Okay,
just feel it. It's something I feel. It's weird.
I don't know how I can follow that one up, really.
Camelot has that effect.
Yeah, that was a mic drop moment. Anyone else, or should we move on?
Rachel Zegler for completely different reasons, but nevertheless, same person.
I feel like she would complain the whole time, so I don't know. Waylon Bucephus also says, I'm not even going to say this one. Lick, first name Mike, second name Hunt, or be stuck with Jack Inov. That's a tough question, my friend. I'll go for Jack. Ethan Rackham says, rank these groups on which one's the smartest, the First Order. The First Order, the High Table, the Watchers Council, the Circle with their plan to genocide smartphones.
What? Genocide smartphones? This is the First Order's the stupidest. Wait, were we asking who's the smartest or stupidest?
So rank these groups on which one's the smartest. Yeah, so smartest first.
Well,
so
it ain't
is the Circle from what's it called?
There's a film called The Circle. Is it from The Circle?
No. Is it not from for the Kingsman?
Oh,
because they're going to use like smartphones to like kill everyone.
Oh, right, of course.
And it's led by
in everyone's head.
Yeah. I think it's that one. So yeah, if we took them and also the High Table from the John Wick movies and the First Order definitely got to be the dumbest.
Yeah, they don't know which way is up. This is a classic.
The High Table never came across as smart. It was just they had the best killers. So it's more like
they were just this kind of nebulous threat, weren't they? Like they don't really have.
No one could find them, and they would kill you first.
Because they still haven't been found, really. Even in John Wick 4.
I feel like that's the only reason we haven't found them is so that they can always bait finding them. That's going to be the next films will be about. He's going to start killing all the High Table and be like, whoa. And they'll just make loads of famous people. You know what? Actually, I'm on board with this. Make it Stallone and Arnie and a bunch of other action stars. Make them all the High Table. Do it.
Yeah.
Down.
It's like the Expendables, but in John Wick.
No,
yeah,
make it,
why not?
No, I want Hugo Weaving to be the head of the High Table, just so like Keanu Reeves can face off against them again.
Do it. Embrace the stupid.
So I guess from the fact that they're the only ones who haven't been eliminated, so do they win? Are they the smartest?
Well, the Kingsman guys, did we eliminate them?
Yeah, well, they all got killed, so
yeah, they got defeated.
Oh, but I mean, I don't know. Does that make them the stupidest? I don't know.
Well,
they kind of went along with this.
Invent the device in the first place.
They didn't do it though. It was only Samuel L. Jackson's character. The rest of them just kind of went along with it. So I'd say they were pretty dumb for just trusting him. I think. So yeah, I would say the High Table wins just by default, really.
I mean, the fact that they've managed to not die for 4 movies, it's not bad, is it?
Yeah. The Ghost of Drinker's Liver says, if you're dabbling in anime, I'd suggest the English dub of Bacano, a complex story of immortal alchemists and organized crime set in New York at the end of the Roaring '20s. There you go. Because if there's one thing I didn't get enough of in Anime Matsuri, it was anime recommendations from people. So thank you for that. Waylon Bicephus says, another serious question, crack or meth? Well, I feel like after Breaking Bad, I got a loyalty to meth.
Yeah, and also like you wouldn't have to worry about gaining weight. You'd always be pretty cut.
Yeah.
It's less addictive too, isn't it? So if you're gonna just do it once,
so meth sounds like a win-win for everyone. Yeah, let's just go with that. JK Fozel says, would you rather be a woke activist or watch 12 Angry Men remade for modern audiences? Well, I mean, it kind of was remade, wasn't it, in the 90s? And it wasn't nearly as good. But yeah, I'd rather see that remade, because if you're an activist, you have to be that every day for the rest of your life. Whereas you can just watch the movie for a couple hours and then get out of it, I think. Kyle Kernan says, what are your top 5 favorite book series? I don't know. Go, guys.
I can't read. I'm from Alabama.
Lord of the Rings. There you go. Game of Thrones.
Yeah. That's like one book.
What are the other famous ones? The Harry Potter. Sure, why not? C is for caterpillar. I don't know.
You're asking a panel of movie critics what their favorite books are.
I'd have the Night Angel trilogy up there. You've got the Stormlight Archive. You've got Wheel of Time. Is it the Lightbringer Chronicles, where he splits light into different magic systems? Mistborn. I knew him off a lot. But a lot of them will be the same authors, and I don't know all the titles. Would be my issue. So I'd have to Google them from the story.
Mikey Gosler sent us a whole bunch, actually, so I'll just read through all of them and we can give our thoughts. People want to cancel a small creator who made a Scooby-Doo skit with some AI voices. However, I'm not hearing them raise concerns for Disney using James Earl Jones' AI voice for its Star Wars products. Yeah, it's very true. I can't believe they fucking came down so hard on that guy.
Yeah, that's
literally just a penniless, like, independent creator, and they felt like they had to squash him. He also says, people say that a reason MI7 failed at the box office is its runtime, and using that as an excuse to say films shouldn't be long. However, Oppenheimer is 3 hours long and is making bank. Maybe people are tired of the Mission Impossible films. Do you think that's a possibility, Mauler?
No. If it was good, it would have been fine. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I got to be fair. Like, I watched RRR the other night, and it's over 3 hours long, and I loved every second. So,
yeah,
I wanted more.
I mean, one of my criticisms of it is there wasn't really an impossible mission as such. I like the whole, here's this stuff that we've really got to break into and plan and execute it. I like that bit of the Mission Impossible movies. And in this, it was like, well, no, we're going to go on a train, and then it all goes wrong. And then, it's going on a train really that impossible of a mission.
Should it be called, like, Slightly Tricky Mission?
Yeah, mission difficult.
Mission probable.
Yeah. He also says, James Gunn, being the hypocrite he is, just tweeted out that he was never making a young Superman movie, just a Superman movie. Funny, I could have sworn that you let Cavill go because he was too old for the role. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I have seen that doing the rounds on Twitter. It's like, so what was your actual problem with him then? And he also says, seems the rumors are true that Gunn dislikes Cavill. Say what you will about Snyder, but he always works with his cast and let them make decisions by themselves. Fair play, yeah. I don't know if he just genuinely didn't get on with Henry Cavill. Not sure what the dealio was there.
No, yeah, and I guess if this new attempt turns out to be shit, it's going to cause so much trouble in terms of, like, once again, we fail.
I guess from his mind, there's a distinction between making a young Superman film and just wanting a younger Superman. Maybe he's trying to clear up that distinction, but I don't know.
Yeah, but when he's like, no, we're going to go back to the early days where he's just become a reporter. I'm like, I don't want another origin story. I would have preferred an older Superman where he's like fighting off against the biggest people you've ever fought kind of thing, rather than we're going to go back to the start again. And I lost a lot of kind of faith in anything he's going to do when he said that The Flash was one of the best superhero movies he's ever seen.
He must have been lying. He had to have been.
Yeah, but if you're going to lie to me about your movies, why am I going to trust you about anything else you say?
To be fair, I wouldn't have expected everything he was saying to be the truth anyway. Because of
no, but it's catch-22. Either you're a liar, in which case we won't trust you in the future, or you're an idiot, in which case we don't trust you in the future.
Yeah.
Why not both?
The Flash and looking good.
Like, he could have said he liked the movie, but he said it said he was the best he'd ever seen. Like, that's about as far as you can go in praise.
They had to give it the best chance possible. It cost them so much money. They were like, God, tell everybody you loved it. And he's like, all right, I'm on it. Ugh. I'd love to speak to him about that. Be like, tell me what you loved about it. Be honest with me. Fucking lie.
Yeah.
Make a 5-hour video explaining it in detail.
Next one is Intelligent Crayon Eater, who says, since you turned the message and modern audiences into catchphrases, how about Schrodinger's Feminist for female characters that are at the same time all-powerful girl bosses and also oppressed victims?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think I've touched upon that in my Barbie review, I think, where it's like they simultaneously have to portray, female characters as amazing and brilliant at everything, but they also they have to be them helpless victims of the patriarchy when it suits the plot. You can either have one or the other. You can't really have both. So yeah, it kind of is Schrodinger's Feminist. Just as an aside note as well, Mr. Brown Alliance is one of my mods. He's really close to getting 3,000 subs. If you guys were inclined to do so, maybe you would be inclined to subscribe to him.
I believe his plan is to do, if he hits a 3,000, I think his plan is to do a 12-hour straight breakdown of Attack of the Clones, which I might be roped into. So if you want to see people potentially die live on air, then go give him those subs.
Yeah, we're almost there, and you can get Little Platoon roped into this. Come on, let's make it happen. I'll leave the link there for a little while as we go through the super chats. Whodunit says, Mauler, you're such a real one for defending Drinker against Adam and other hit pieces the way you do. Massive respect to you for that. And Drinker, keep that man close. He's a true friend. Mauler, the greatest of all time.
Aww.
He is a lovely man, and I appreciate him.
Something that made me thoroughly laugh was in his community, they were like pretty suspicious that he goes to defend Drinker. Like the second someone tries to attack him in any way. And all they had to cite was that I did this and Pillar of Garbage. But Pillar of Garbage was right after we covered Glass Onion. So I was like, I know Glass Onions was wild. And then someone else said, like, yeah, you wouldn't see him do that for JXE. I was like, we've defended Jay 4 times, 4 episodes. I was like, hello? Like, what the fuck?
Selective memories. They're fantastic, aren't they? But no, I said to you, like, offline and stuff. I genuinely really appreciate you going to bat for me. So thank you, my friend. That's speaks volumes of your integrity.
My pleasure, sir. It was easy to do.
Normie says, greetings all. If the panel could purchase Star Wars from Disney, what would you do to reboot the franchise?
Take off and nuke the site from orbit, I think. It's the only way to be sure.
Yeah. Just don't make anything for several years.
Yeah.
Just let the rage die down a little bit.
I would literally sit in the meetings, not say what I'm doing. You just sit there and you just listen to what they say. And from the way you talk, you can tell who would need to be fired and who wouldn't. It would be that simple. It just requires the will to do it. And the thing is, if say they hired a CEO tomorrow who wanted to do it, the moment he tried, every single journalist, every single newspaper would come out against them. This is horrific. You can't do this. They tried the same thing with Twitter. They tried to sink the whole thing because he's like, you can't fire these people. And I think he had a better excuse because it's like, well, we're going to go bankrupt if we don't. And I think Disney would have to come out with some kind of similar argument.
They also shot themselves in the foot when they predicted it would be gone within a week, and then notably it was not gone within a week. So after that, their reasons seemed a bit, well, they already seemed suspect, but they disproved themselves. Whereas with something like taking over a studio, it's harder to do that. And I think that they would say, well, this is just terrible for all the other reasons, but we're not going to set a firm date on when the studio will decline and demise. But I like the idea of sitting in that corner with a clipboard, just menacingly jotting down notes in complete silence.
Yeah.
And killing everyone off afterwards, obviously. But yeah, take a long break, reinstantiate a lot of the stuff that was cut before all of this horrible era began, and start again.
Yep. No, I very much agree. Mr. Brown has now only got 70 subscribers to go to get to 3,000, and then he's going to do his epic 12-hour stream. So let's punish him and make him do that 12-hour stream.
I thought you said that. I thought you were going to say that he's now only got 70 subscribers, but that's what.
Nobody wants the Clone Wars.
That's the power of the drinker. It's like I recommend someone, they instantly kill their channel. Next one is the chat, who says live stream scheduled for 3:05 p.m. How specific? It was, yeah, partly because I know we're always slightly late, so I was trying to compensate for that, but I didn't compensate enough because we were 10 minutes late beyond that. So, yeah, it always reconfigures. Derek says, a friend of mine told me that he liked Rings of Power, so I killed him. Do you think I might have overreacted? No, actually, I don't think you did.
No.
He also says, what's your favorite lightsaber duo from the 6 Star Wars movies?
Luke and Vader on Bespin, probably.
Mine is Luke and Vader on the Death Star in Return of the Jedi.
Maul and Obi-Wan.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Well,
I'm probably going to go with Drinker. I think, yeah, Luke and Vader on the Death Star, I think.
For the record, it would be the Return of the Jedi for the character stuff, but for the fight itself, I love the Bespin one.
I think there's more like interplay between them. Like it's more interesting, probably in terms of locations and how it ebbs and flows. But the emotional payoffs, I think, character-wise, really seal the deal for me in Return of the Jedi. But yeah, what was the next one? Orthworm Jeb says, "I want to thank you again for the autograph and photo op from the last week's anime Matsuri." No problem, man. It was my pleasure. Waylon Bicephus says, should they have cast Shaq to play Snow White? I think he could have played it, probably better than Rachel Zegler.
It's time to give him the chance, okay? I just want to see it. Just give it a chance.
I think we could do it. Tim France says, critical drinker, rather than Rakita, taller than Rakita, wider than Camelot, absolute unit. Slange, have a whiskey and coke on me. Thank you very much, man. I mean, I might be taller than Rakita, but I'm definitely not wider than Camelot. That dude is built. I've seen him.
Thank you.
I love how you wore a fucking vest the entire weekend. You're like, yeah, screw this. David Lamplow says, honest trailers always crack me up. Do you ever watch his stuff? Just like the Ryan George pitch meetings are so accurate. Hey, shut up. I like honest trailers. They're pretty good. And so are pitch meetings.
Yeah.
Lazy but talented says, Nikocado Avocado's OnlyFans page would probably be more entertaining than watching Snow White. Yeah, it would definitely be less preachy. I can pretty much guarantee that. Patrick Mulligan says, will you watch and review Cinderella already? What, like the movie from like 2015? I mean,
maybe.
I could.
I wasn't aware there was any desperate burning need for a Cinderella review.
Well, this guy is waiting for it, okay?
This one guy, yeah. Well, I need to make him happy. I think the general consensus seems to be that it's quite good. Like, I think this was done before the current era of like Disney remakes, so it was relatively, because it was Kenneth Branagh who directed it, and I think it's generally seen as pretty well done. I don't know. I might be wrong on that one, but I don't think there's a huge amount of controversy around it. T1S says, in Darth Vader's voice, where are the aviator shades? Are they safe? Are they all right? Yeah, they are, but they're in my luggage, which is in fucking like Chicago at the moment. So I had to make do with what I could find, and it's Wayfarers. instead. So, what can I say? You'll have to make do. Robert Kennedy says, hail Mauler and Drinker. Saw your full interview with Russell Brand. Great stuff. I'm enjoying a Glen Kinchy. Hail to the doggo. Thank you. And I'm glad you enjoyed it. Reiken Knight says, had a great time meeting you guys at Anime Matsuri. Thank you very much. And I'm sure we had a great time meeting you from what I can remember, which isn't much. Lillian Deity says, Drinker, would you rather become a weeb or let Hollywood subvert your novels? I think I'd become a weeb, personally.
Yeah,
I could get into that. What's that? Ashitaka Amishi says, so, did you catch any good anime at the convention? No, but I caught a lot of good cosplayers at the convention. Yeah. There's a lot of skimpy outfits at that one. The Real Haltonator says, it's funny, I was just thinking, I wish there was a good stream going on. Also, Muller loved EFAP's covering of the XQC demolition. You guys, Drinker and Bar included, can make anything fun.
Well, good.
Thank you. And yeah, did you demolish XQC?
Well, I can't believe I'm saying this, but Ethan Klein did. We watched their back and forth, and Ethan mopped the floor with him. He did just a bit of prep. XQC didn't, and the dominoes fell pretty much. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I kind of would recommend watching it. He does a really good job. A lot of people have said, like, man, it kind of feels like old Ethan Klein. It's like, yeah, a little bit.
It's also a good rule for them. Like, if you finish a debate doing the worm and then storming off, you've probably lost.
Probably.
Yeah, it's not the most intellectual move, I don't think. They're asking here, does Drinker drug the critical doggo? Why is he always asleep? He's a greyhound. It's literally what they do. They run and sleep, and they do nothing in between. Mr. Brown Alliance has got 22 subs to go. He's almost there. Come on, chat. I believe in you. Just go to Mr. Brown Alliance on YouTube and subscribe to him so we can get him over the 3K, and we can force him to do a 12-hour stream. All right. I'll do a couple more super chats and then finish up. Liam Fibian says, have any of you seen Hishi, How It Should Have Ended? They're so funny. They are. Yeah. I can't argue with that. Yeah. They're pretty good. The Lord of the Rings ones are really good. Blukaka says, hi, have you seen Everything Everywhere All at Once? Yes. And I gave it a Drinker Recommends. So I guess go watch that if you want to hear my thoughts.
Yeah.
Chase Farley says, miserable slow day working at the bar. Thanks for giving me something to look forward to. No, thank you. I hope your bar is filled with alcohol. And Ryan Guy says, hail open bar, scan me into the collective, Drinker. And then you give me a barcode. Okay. Consider yourself scanned. And John Doe, the average Joe, says, we've seen Take Charge Snow White before with Kristen Stewart in Snow White and the Huntsman and Lily Collins in Mirror Mirror. Zegler isn't breaking any molds. That's very true, actually, yeah. Was everyone thrilled by Kristen Stewart's mouth-breathing take on Snow White?
I forgot it existed.
I always forget that happened.
We all prefer to. And then there was a sequel, Snow White and the Huntsman. And it was like she wasn't even in it because she was that popular. They couldn't handle her.
Would be funny if it still outperforms the new Snow White, though. That would be good.
There's a good chance it might, actually, because, wow. The new one doesn't seem to be on a good track. Anyway.
It's one of those things as well where if they were about to release the movie now, it would probably be better because no one can talk about it. But as it's coming out in 2024, the strike will definitely be over. And any promotion they do will be gone over with a fine-tooth comb just because of this. So they're going to be in a worse state.
Journalists queuing up to interview Rachel Zegler. So tell us what else you hated about the film.
Yeah.
Oh, every question will be a setup.
Yeah. But make them a fortune. Not Disney, though. But anyway, gentlemen, I want to say thank you. I'm going to finish up there today because we've been going for about, I don't know, close to 3 hours, I think. Yeah, it's been great to have you all on tonight. And I appreciate you guys giving up a couple hours of your time to do this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Heck yeah, dude.
Always a pleasure.
I appreciate it.
As we said before, Mahler's vinyl plushie is available to pre-order now. The link is in the description. So give it a go if you're
bigger. Otherwise, they're gonna get really confused. Vinyl plushie.
I want a vinyl plushie. I want to squeeze it, but it's so solid. Yeah, vinyl figurine thing. It's there for you guys to pre-order, and yeah, it's a limited edition collector's item because it's not going to be available again after this potentially. So get it while you can. Any of you guys got anything else you want to make us aware of? Anything you got coming up, or anything that you'd like to make people know about?
I'm popping a video out on Saturday.
Yeah, you are. I saw your community post.
Yeah, I gotta let people know because they're like, he died, he's gone. I'm like, no, look, hello, yeah.
I'm still a thing that exists on YouTube. Yeah, I mean, Quantum Mania. I think we're all excited to see your thoughts on it.
I didn't think it was very good, so yeah.
I'm shocked by that. I really am. You really kept your cards close to your chest on that.
We figured it out.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I guess that's all that we've got for today. Thank you, everyone who's joined us tonight. Thank you for all your awesome super chats. I know there's still some super chats outstanding from the stream I did just before I went off to Anime Matsuri. So I will catch up on them and this one tonight. So no super chat will be left behind. But yeah, that is all we got for today. So go away now.
See ya.
Bye.